everybody, to the 6th episode of the Deadliest Warrior podcast. I am your host today, Craig Taylor, and this is an episode that we have been eagerly anticipating, all of us. I would consider this our mid-season finale.
Perhaps for like the better part of a decade, maybe.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of emotions on this show, so I think that it's best if we do a little format change and give this episode the treatment it deserves.
I've been prefacing it for a while. I've been talking about the format change.
Yeah.
Here it is, people.
Let's do this.
Boom! Welcome to the very first video Deadliest Warrior podcast. As I said, I am your host today, Craig Taylor, joined by my co-host,
Matt Davis.
and
Hey, it's Lucas. And you're sitting on the podcast.
and today we have guest,
Dan from Xenu Games also.
right, and back from Cairo Station, we have the one, the only,
Mike Dooley. I fended off the Covenant boarding party. Unfortunately, they destroyed all the other stations, so I'm stuck here.
Glad to see he's okay.
He made time here before deploying to New Mombasa.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
we got to take
glad
out
to
that
see
carrier.
Man, those Halo jokes hit every time.
We have a big Halo audience. Like, at least 90% of the people watching this also play Halo. These are big facts.
yeah, statistically.
Leave a like if you play Halo.
Yeah, or if you don't play Halo. So this episode, full disclaimer. So kind of how we have it set up. We have a lot of people. We have 4 of our experts. There are 6 weapon categories. They're not making it easy on us. And given also all of our strong feelings about this episode. So we're going to do our best to keep this as tight as possible. I think we're going to be lucky if we keep it under 3 hours. But really, we can go like 6+ if we really wanted to. But we're going to try not to. So
You'll see how long it is if you look down in the right-hand corner.
yes.
I'd just like to say that I'll introduce me and Dan here first as Team Spetsnaz.
Yes, Spetsnaz.
Dan, you are former naval. I don't know if you want to give your introduction.
Yeah, just a former Navy CT. That's cryptology, and now I am unemployed, waiting for school to start.
Very good. And I main Capcan on Rainbow Six Siege, which gives me a lot of qualifications to talk about the Spetsnaz. But I did some research for this episode, so got you guys.
Hey, we got Team Green Beret over here.
One.
I'm Lucas. My qualifications, I guess I'm a Marine Corps veteran. That's my old uniforms hanging up in the background. I got the Joe Valentine trophy on Resident Evil 3 for beating it on Inferno. So top that. With me, I'm joined by Mike. I'll let him give his own introduction, whatever he wants to say.
As much as I want to make a joke, I have to make a lame, serious comment. So I am currently in active duty in the Army, and anything I say is not necessarily the views of the Army. They don't support this podcast. So, the Army isn't endorsing this in any facet, even though the Green Berets should have won and are a better unit and more useful, and the Spetsnaz is lame.
I think it's safe to say the Army does not endorse what Mike says, but they probably would.
Yes.
So, and I almost forgot Brendan is back over there with the 1s and 2s. We are on a limited budget, so he does not have a microphone. But I'm sure he'll yell something if he
Sorry
really
for
has
stealing your mic.
to. Yeah.
We've invested so much money at this point into this podcast for you people.
And you probably couldn't
So,
tell.
so one morning,
It's still
Craig
bad
just hits me up.
quality.
He's like, "Can you, pitch in some money for a mixer?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "How much you need?" Like $200. I'm like, "Right now?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay."
Okay, that did not happen. Hey.
Hey, oh, hey.
Yeah.
It's like our budget has increased drastically, but we still have Mike on a Zoom iPad call.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm ready, baby. I'm
I
fired
know.
up.
So we're actually going to skip the icebreaker because I know everybody's frothing at the mouth and thinking about this probably since episode 1, what we're going to say.
Can you preface this, Craig, by setting up front that this is probably the most controversial episode of Deadliest Warrior, at least to American audiences? IRA Taliban's probably more controversial in Britain, but
Yeah, I mean, to the fact that people that are not fans may even remember this episode. Matt, do you want to tell the story about your dad?
Oh, gee, yeah. My dad was like, I told him that I was recording like this Deadliest Warrior podcast, and he was like, yeah, okay. And then I told him, yeah, we're covering Green Beret Spetsnaz this week, and my dad's an Army veteran. He served in the 82nd Airborne and the Gulf War, and he was like, you gonna talk about that stupid Etool? Like immediately he was like, Edge Etool, you know. And I think it just sticks out because this is an American show, and the Green Berets are the only, it depends on your definition of American, because there is a season 3 loss that you could count, but these are the only like United States warriors that lose to a non like American unit. So, and I'm pretty sure because the Green Beret lost and they got so much backlash, that's the reason no other American ever loses on this show.
Yeah, but we kind of have to take this at face value that this is actually with no interference. In fact, I would say this is probably the strongest piece of evidence that the show or the sim is real. Because who the hell would come up with that the Green Berets would lose? You cannot fake that. So, I'm sure we'll get into that. I asked Matt if he wanted to have his dad call in, but he didn't go for it.
I listen, he's mellowed out in his older age, and I don't want to get his blood pressure going over something so trivial.
Let me throw out a fact here. Your dad bought me this T-shirt.
That he did. He's
that
a
I
fan.
wear all
He's
the time.
a Demolition Ranch fan. So.
I have no trouble seeing this at all.
This episode has been referenced on almost every episode we've done so far.
And probably will be going forward.
It'll be referenced again.
Yeah. So getting into it, the Green Beret, starting out with stats, listed as 6'1", 180 pounds of pure American muscle. 29 pounds of gear, and a force size of 4,500. So I guess I want to start with Mike. Obviously it's relatively small force size. How hard is it to get into the Green Berets?
So the force size as of 2009, they say 4,500, and I wasn't able to find out how many groups. So that's what they call their detachment, their larger detachments. Is special forces groups. There's group one, currently 7 groups, and as of right now, there's 7. And I did some quick math. There's about 1,290 people in a group, and that math is around 10,000 people right now. And as of 2009, that doesn't make sense for there to be about only 4,500. That number's kind of really wrong, and I don't know where they get it. However, to actually answer your question, not go on a random tangent about wrong stats, it is...
That's his whole podcast.
So, physically speaking, it is not the hardest physically demanding special operations unit to get into. And I'm going to use the phrase special operations, since the Green Berets are the Army Special Forces. And then a lot of people like saying special forces when they refer to like Navy SEALs or Army Rangers or British Special Air Service, SAS. They call all those special forces, but it's easier if I just talk about special operations being the whole bigger group of different forces, and special forces when I'm actually talking about the Green Berets. So the special forces physically is not the hardest thing in the world. However, mentally, it is more complex than anything else.
They talk about that a lot on the show, is the mental, and even in the reenactment, they make a big point to be like, oh, look at these light bulbs. Let me shoot these.
Yeah,
so that's a big aspect that represents the Green Berets.
It's not that simple, because not only are the Green Berets language specialists, they're also cultural experts. So each Green Beret has to be a master of a language and a culture. So if you're an Arabic specialist, you also have to be an expert in Arabic cultures. And this becomes really important to what is actually special about them, is that they are teachers first. They go into countries and they raise foreign guerrillas. They raise militias. And that's why they're the best special forces unit or special operations group, is because they go in there and they raise forces up from the indigenous people. I guess indigenous is probably a weird word, but from pre-existing people. You drop in one ODA operational like detachment, and that's 12 Green Berets, and they go in there and they raise an army. So
Okay. So, and you can't do that if you don't understand the culture or the
no,
language.
exactly. And not only that, they're experts. So their job specializations are broken up into the 18 series in the Army. And there's the 18 Alpha, the 18 Bravo, the 18 Charlie, 18 Delta, 18 Echo, 18 Foxtrot. And ignoring me using the phonetic alphabet, all these are is the Bravo's the weapons expert, and he knows more or less every weapon that you will find on a modern battlefield, dating back to like a Kar 98K all the way up to a Scar H or even more modern stuff that's in testing. The 18 Bravo knows all these weapons and knows how to train people on all these weapons. Then you have the 18 Charlie, who's a engineer, which is in military speak, engineers just blow shit up. They know any kind of bombs. They can make bombs from anything. And they what's special about Green Berets is they know how to teach anyone to make bombs. And then
so that's interesting because it's not just like tactical knowledge, but literal knowledge.
yes.
Of different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm surprised they didn't mention that more in the show.
But do they wear their berets into combat?
No, and also
that seems like a really good way to get shot.
They invented something. What's it called? A helmet?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
A Kevlar?
Which phonetic alphabet is the armor beret? Because he's not doing a good job, according to Deadliest Warrior.
Yeah. And so Lucas, I kind of want to kick it over to you. Mike probably touched on some of this, but according to the show, the goal of the Green Berets is to liberate the oppressed. So is this accurate? And if so, like what exactly does that mean?
I think liberate the oppressed is their motto, right? Like de oppresso libere.
Yeah, I got that
I
written
think
down
translates to that.
Yeah,
I
it
just
means,
wanted to interject that. That was all.
From oppression we liberate. Yeah, the army, like in itself, is, they go in and they're an occupying force in itself. So it makes sense that the Green Beret, they're, the special operations, special forces, they go beyond that to, they go behind and they go into these highly contested, conflicted areas. And, they liberate. And as Mike was kind of going on, they don't just go in there and liberate. They build up these new forces. They train who's there to kind of keep this problem from coming back, so they don't leave and then it get taken over again, or, kind of builds the future warriors that are going to defend the peace and freedom that they help instill in that area.
Interesting. So why were the Green Berets initially created?
I'll run you through a little bit just of history of when they were founded on June 19th in 1952 and has been in pretty much almost every conflict since. They adopted the signature Green Beret in 1954. It was to set themselves apart visually, pretty much. And I put as a side note, they do not wear them into combat. Yeah, they work in 12-man teams and their headquarters in Fort Bragg. What was your original question?
I guess just like why they were created.
Yeah, it was essentially just for the need of someone to go, beyond the call of a regular soldier, to have this elite selection process and, have someone who can go in there to pretty much just train people. So it's not just us doing this job completely by ourselves. We go in there and actually train other forces and create up these other armies. And just some of the selection process I wanted to go over for it. It's a very big, when you look up U.S. Special Forces, you think it would be very cut and dry. Like, this is what you do this, you do this, you do this, you pass or fail and you get in. It's kind of a cluster trying to figure out, like, what you do past, like, the qualification courses and the actual training. A lot of it's still secretive and not completely declassified yet. But you must be airborne qualified in the Army first. You must meet.
What does that mean?
It's the guys who jump out of the airplanes. It's essentially a qualification.
You have to be trained to be able to do that?
Yes. Yeah, it's essentially a qualification that you can earn where you become, airborne. You've seen it in like video games, movies, everything.
Warzone, baby.
Yeah. Ooh. But you
We're
must
all trained.
I mean, there's high medical and fitness standards. You have to be eligible for secret security. If you ever worked any government job, you know about the security clearances. If not, they sound made up. They're like secret, top secret.
What about Q level clearance?
Oh yeah, you gotta have a big Q level.
That's a separate caveat.
Yeah, let's not get on that.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, save that for the Gen Pod.
And you got to score good on the ASVAB. In 2019, 3,000 soldiers were assessed. 939 made it to the Q course, that initial qualification course.
I told you.
Get a good Q score. Which is the qualification course, which is essentially just 3 weeks of hell. And then of that 939, 70% passed, which is actually a higher passing rate for a lot of other special forces. It's one of the higher passing rates, but that's essentially how you get into it. And from there, you got anywhere from like 63 to like 79 weeks of specialized training in your job. And there's so many, you don't just become a Green Beret and that is your job. You have like your job in the Green Beret, and there's tons of different specializations. It's a really, try to look up the special forces and like look at it's a big cluster.
I remember my dad once told me that like a Green Beret medic is like very close to like an actual doctor.
Yeah.
Almost. Like
they actually prefer some college too before you go in.
Yeah.
Crazy. Well, learned a lot about the Green Beret with that. So moving on to the Spetsnaz. The stats are 5'11", 175 pounds, 27 pounds of gear, and a force size of 15,000. I just wanted to note most of those stats are like almost not different at all. And do you guys think that there's any meaning in those, or they just wanted to make it different?
Oh, you go ahead.
I just
Mike.
want to mention really quick for the gear. So I did a quick Google search. The average marching load, so when the soldiers are marching into battle, is anywhere from 100 to 200 pounds. That's with a rucksack, and like that's extra gear that they're not going to need. However, when they go into combat, they ditch the rucksack, like they will ditch their extra clothes or sleeping equipment, and they're going to take a combat load in. And I thought it'd be more interesting to do math on an Excel sheet than actually like look it up. So based on if they're carrying all their weapons, and then they're carrying ammo for all their weapons, and for Americans, it's 210 is the average, this gold standard for your assault rifle. Pistols, 3 mags. 210 rounds is 8 magazines for your M4. 3 mags for your M9. 2 grenades. 16 shotgun shells. 8 mags for the M24. 1 Etool. And then I included armor, even though they don't mention armor. That comes out to...
That's 29 pounds, right?
It comes out to that load, what I just mentioned, all the ammo and the weapons, is 66.5 pounds. If you drop the armor, it's 52.5 pounds. I have no idea where they get the gear weight. If you add up all the weapons with no ammo, it's almost that weight. So I don't know where they get it from.
And you'll find a similar issue with the Spetsnaz because some of those weapons, the Dragunov, the AK,
the
47,
Sega shotgun.
Those are some heavy equipment.
I mean, the Sega shotgun is firing magazines that have 10, 12 gauge shells in them. I didn't even bother to look up what the standard like ammo carrying is. I just was like baffled by the gear weight. We talked about this on the last episode where they gave like the Mafia and Yakuza like 10 pounds, and then both their primary weapons weighed like more than like 10 pounds.
Honestly, at this stage, I think we need a bigger sample size of episodes before we come to a conclusion.
Yeah,
of
I don't
their
know
logic.
know where they get the pounds from. I don't know how they break it down. I imagine maybe in the sim they just strip away all gear. They say in the aftermath of this episode that there is no body armor, so you could take that out. They probably don't have any gear in the sim, but even then, it's like how many guns does each? Because it's 5-on-5. How many guns does each like warrior carry? Right?
Yeah, it is not answered. So
does he have? Because you would not have a guy that's got an AK, a Dragunov, a Sega, a Makarov. Right?
Maybe it's like GTA rules where it just pulls it out.
He's just got a weapon wheel.
Yeah. So I wanted to get you in here, Dan.
Right.
So what role do the Spetsnaz play, and what makes them so secretive?
So the Spetsnaz, it's actually kind of ironic because their origin story with early 1900s, they actually performed a very similar role to the Green Berets. Like in the Spanish Civil War, they actually trained their own soldiers over there to fight for their own interests. And it's sort of evolved from there, especially with the Cold War, which is presumably the Spetsnaz that they want to use for this scenario. Discrepancies to follow.
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit.
And then
It irks me.
the Spetsnaz role during the Cold War was more of like a lethal intention. A lot of their missions were, in the early stages, straight up assassination. We're going to go into Afghanistan and kill the president. And so they're not very far off. The Spetsnaz is, however, a very broad role of jobs. Matt can definitely fill you. We were actually discussing earlier on the different types of Spetsnaz, because there are many different types.
Put me in, coach. Tag me in. I'm ready.
Take it away.
I'm ready. So Spetsnaz, unlike the term Green Beret, which is like a colloquial phrase for a very specific unit, right? Mike was saying that is Army Special Forces is the Green Berets. Spetsnaz literally translates to units of special purpose, and it's referring to the entire Russian military. So the Russian equivalent to like the Navy SEALs, the Russian equivalent to the Army Special Forces, etc., etc. And they have different color Green Berets to distinguish them. So this is how we're going to break it down, because the Green Berets in this episode very specifically have the Crimson Beret. Ground and airborne forces wear blue berets. Navy and Marines wear black berets. If you work for, it's called like the Russian National Guard, but it's not the same thing as the American National Guard. National Guard is talking about the Ministry of Internal Affairs, which is abbreviated MVD. I think it's the Russian abbreviation. So
the World Canadian Bureau.
Yeah, right. The World
Exactly what
Canadian
jumped into my
Bureau.
head.
If you work for the MVD, that you're working for like the military intelligence wing of the Russian military. Those are the guys that earned the Crimson Beret. Two specific attachments that work underneath the MVD are the Wimpel group and Alpha group. I'm not gonna brag or anything, but I got the Wimpel skin on my Capcan guy in Rainbow Six
So
Siege.
he's basically an expert.
Right, yeah, right.
Did you say pimple skin? Is that like the teenager with the pizza face?
Right, Wimpel.
I would buy a pimple cap can skin.
So Vympel, Wimpel. I keep enunciating it. I hope I'm not pronouncing
Matt,
it wrong.
you can
That
do
would-
all your
Probably
pimple
are.
tactics. All I need to do is bring up my gun and shoot you, and you can do all this.
Yeah,
stuff.
right. Wimpel's considered like the top of the line Spetsnaz, and these guys do whatever. I think the majority of Spetsnaz train more for direct action missions than the Green Berets do. But if you're wearing a Crimson Beret, you can be doing a broad number of jobs. So I wrote down some of I was like, what are some famous Spetsnaz like operations that have happened in the past? So we have the Spetsnaz were reported in Vietnam training North Vietnamese troops, and there's a lot of conflicting reports about potentially having Spetsnaz that were flying aircraft over Vietnam, kind of unconfirmed. Some Spetsnaz were like spotted in Laos.
Call of Duty tells me they did.
Yeah, there you go. They were responsible in the invasion of Afghanistan for assassinating the Afghan president, and they actually, when the Soviets were preparing to invade Afghanistan, Spetsnaz was in there first. They wiped out all the government officials and took over all the government buildings, basically, and like secured the military bases as like the first step of the invasion. And in modern context, they're a lot more known for like their counterterrorism activities. Notable missions are like the Beirut hostage situation, Chechen hospital siege, Moscow theater hostage operation, and the Beslan school massacre. The massacre was done by the terrorists, not the Spetsnaz. Yeah. And the Spetsnaz, of course, this year are like, in the most recent years involved in the occupation of the Crimean Peninsula, and they're involved heavily in the Syrian civil war. And I think they are doing intelligence operations on the ground. and especially if we're focusing in on the Spetsnaz that are wearing the Crimson Berets, they would be doing jobs similar to the Green Berets. But we can get more into it as the episode goes on. Maybe some differences between the training and
I will say,
direct action missions.
generally what you hear in the show, generally they get the Spetsnaz pretty accurately.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So moving on to experts. So some juicy experts in this episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with Green Beret's Matt Anderson. He's actually a low-key kind of standout expert on this season. I remember him pretty vividly watching as a kid. He's a former Green Beret, and he seems like a douche. I can't put my finger on it, but it's just like one of those like military nerds who's just like he's always has a stupid one-liner. Just like
I can kill somebody by putting a round into their chest at 1,000 meters, and I can do it over and over again.
Well, remember, most human problems can be solved with the appropriate charge of high explosive.
Shut up.
I think he just does a lot of like dad jokes.
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan.
Mike, is
I'm
that
sorry.
attitude very prevalent in the military for you?
No.
The one-liners?
No. That's, I mean, like, maybe older people, for, like, your dad who's a veteran, but no.
Do you think it's a fake military thing?
No.
Like, people who
That's
aren't in the
also not
military
a-
say
that's-
stuff like that?
I think he's genuine.
No. So that's not what I meant. I meant people, like, that say stuff like that are people that aren't actually in the military. Like, people that are like, yeah.
I think, like everyone else who's on this show, who's playing a character. So I did not research the experts, full disclosure. However, Matt Anderson, I was paying attention during the show, as I would hope everyone was. And just the way he,
we were.
the way he talks, not those what was stupid one-liners, but the way he talks about the Green Beret, the way he acts and carries himself, makes him seem legit. Like, he says Army Special
I agree.
Forces.
I think he is
when he
legit.
says Green Beret. He talks about them thinking and, like, how important that is. And the way he talks about stuff, it makes him seem legit. Now, he could be Barry Jacobson, but, you know, who knows?
So I looked on Matt Anderson's IMDb and all his stuff. He, according to his model page, he did stunt work in Call of Duty 2 and 5. I don't know what they mean by Call of Duty 5.
Is that World at War?
World at War, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I assume so. One website I found listed him in Deadliest Warrior Season 1 and 2. So maybe keep an eye out for him and, like, doing a stunt work. Because
Could be like an advisor or something too.
Yeah.
maybe, like, they said that he transitioned. He was military. He transitioned into some stunt work. So that's kind of his story, I guess.
Interesting.
And I found some fun facts on his IMDb, and there's a little bit of a back and forth. So, first fact is he served in the Gulf War in the U.S. Army. He was a, quote, Green Beret sniper on an A team, and he's now in the reserves. Fact 2 says he received an other than honorable discharge for an attempted weapon smuggling.
Plot twist.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Fact 3 is that he was indicted along with Steve Goyen and Jared Chandler for allegedly falsifying documents to steal military equipment for their prop house swag, in all caps.
Interesting.
And then the fourth fact says, was cleared of all criminal charges against him regarding the allegations of falsifying documents to obtain military equipment for a Hollywood movie prop
Can
house.
I
Wow.
Did he,
say something about that?
Yeah.
So, in my job in the military, we often get attached to special forces groups to help them as support. If you look at the breakdown of the special forces group, there's a support company, and my job can usually get put in those companies. And from what I've heard from NCOs who've worked with the special forces group, they sound like those kinds of people who would, quote, falsify documents and steal weapons for swag. So that actually sounds like
Yeah.
something that would happen depending on the team. They're supposed to,
Mike, he was acquitted of all charges.
so they're supposed to be more mature adult soldiers, like usually soldiers who've been in for a while, like almost in their 30s go for the selection. But if you've been in the Army your entire life, you probably haven't necessarily grown up that much.
Yeah, I just think it's funny that like he saw this fact on his IMDb and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna submit a new fact." He was acquitted of all charges.
Little asterisks.
So, yes, that was
Can I
funny.
tell you, I wanted a little like 30-second story about that. Whenever I was getting out of the military in transition, one of the craziest things, they have this program that you go through, you're required to get out. And there's like me, who's like, I'm getting out at what, like 22, 23. And there was people who were like 40 years old getting out. They were like the dumbest everyday life people.
Yeah.
Like they knew the military so well, but they're
So-
like, how do you buy groceries?
You're
What's a
talking about-
W-2?
You're talking about like the TAPS class, right?
Yeah, like the transition class. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there
The
are some
older you were-
man-childs in there.
Yeah, the older you were, like the dumber you were transitioning into like the civilian world.
It's like
It was
getting out of
crazy.
prison or something.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know,
It
like
really is. It's a course to make sure that any veteran transitioning out has the life skills necessary to make it outside of the military.
Yeah, I'm like, why am I in this class? Then I look over and this guy's like, what's a resume? And I'm like, okay, I know why I'm here.
yeah, that's funny. So moving on to the next expert is Sergeant George Gomez. I assume he was active duty. Is that why they had the sergeant in front of his name? Is that what that
Yeah.
means?
Probably.
At
He
the
was
time
a
of-
staff sergeant too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got promoted. At the time of filming, he was active duty. He was a weapons and tactics instructor at Fort Bragg, which is the headquarters for the Green Berets. I don't know if he was actually part of them or not, but he served 2 combat tours. I assume he is. He served 2 combat tours in Bosnia, Kosovo, and Afghanistan. And his father actually worked in the film industry, which is why I think he had this connection. And he was just quoted saying that he wanted to represent his community in a good light. So as opposed to the other guy, he might be a little better. Can we have the wall of infamy where like the people who've been arrested, so we
Yeah.
put them on this wall?
Zero Kazama.
The only other note I have on here for George Gomez is that I found his LinkedIn. Nothing of note. I just found his LinkedIn. So
We know where you are, George. We
Yeah.
know where you're working.
We're linked in.
yeah. So then we move on to the legend, Sonny
Yeah.
Puzikas. He might be the most famous expert in all of season 1, or maybe even any season, because it only goes downhill from here. I would describe him as an 80s movie villain. Everything he says, it's amazing he's not an actor, because every line he delivers is just captivating, and he's just like,
Sonny is like the most charming man in the world that could probably cut your head off with a pocket knife.
yeah, he steals the show. So he a lot of history from him. I mean, if you look at his website, he teaches classes, he has a podcast, he has like swag, he's got merch. He's a pretty public figure. And on his other person he's with is Maxime Franz, who lists as part of a sniper team. And he has an interesting quote.
Guns just don't do the job, people do the job.
He says that guns just don't do the job, people do the job. I don't want to talk about that quote right now. I want to save it for the end because I think it's a nice capstone to what this episode is and all my problems with it. So we'll revisit that. But the reason that...
Here's this good quote. I'm going to tear it apart later.
Yeah.
No. Here's the thing.
I think I know
Yeah,
exactly
I
what
get where
Craig's
you're going.
getting at.
I agree with him for what it's worth. And I thought it was just a throwaway line, but I kept thinking about it. So we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But the reason I introduced these 2 people together is because they actually have a relationship outside of this show. Maxime Franz is quoted in the legendary friendly fire incident involving Sonny Puzikas. I guess he was teaching some sort of military tactics on like a gun range. And he went into like a kill house to practice, and someone was in there, and like he thought he had clearance to go in there, and he shot the guy. I think the guy lived, but like
did, yeah.
Maxine, I was surprised to see his name come up. He was involved, and both of them have a similar role where they like Sonny's kind of like, or not Sonny, but Maxime's kind of like the henchman, and Sonny's like the villain.
The super
but-
villain, yeah.
Yeah.
They do often work together, it seems like, especially with
Yeah.
their like self-defense programs.
Yeah, I would only add to that, like Sonny and Maxime, they teach like Sistema classes together. You can find them online. And Sonny teaches like, there's a whole industry in the United States. I'm assuming most of our audience is probably American, but there's a whole industry in the United States about like training guys tactically with like rifles, right? And it's usually like former military or police members do it. Most of those classes are based around the AR-15 because that's a popular weapon platform in the United States. Sonny teaches one based around the AK-47, in the AK platform rifles. And it was actually a fellow instructor that he accidentally shot in like basically a live fire exercise accident that happened. He's talked about it. I won't go into it any more than that, but You can take a training course with Sonny. You can get his videos, look up his exercise routine. I always remember Sonny showed up in Weaponology on like the History Channel for a great warm-up, great appetizer for the entree that is Green Beret Spetsnaz. These are for the people at home. Watch the Weaponology episodes on the Green Berets and the Spetsnaz, and it's a wonderful appetizer.
You get all you know of Sonny and
Can
more.
I?
Yeah. He shows up on that, and he actually does. Craig mentioned acting. He does stunt acting and choreography, and he's in a movie I think called Daylight's End, where there's like a scene you can look up on YouTube. His scene where he fights off zombies in his last stand or whatever.
I think he does work in Call of Duty also. That's like the Deadliest
I would
dumping
not be
ground.
surprised.
Yeah.
I'm sure half the executions in the season pass are him.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention the Weaponology. Matt put it out to us to do a little bit extra research and watch those episodes for our teams. I want to say, if Deadliest Warrior is meant for like a 13, a 12 to 14-year-old, Weaponology is meant for like a 16 to 17-year-old, because it is cut together so unnecessarily, and like there's all this music. It'll like have Larry Vickers talking for 3 seconds about a serious thing, and it'll just cut to like this random ass Spanish guy rushing an American while they're talking about the 1911. It has this really weird like sound effect.
Rather basic form of the 1911, essentially the same as what was used during World War II, was the standard service pistol for the U.S. military up to the mid-1980s.
Almost 100 years had passed since the regular Army's plan to replace the .45 caliber was challenged by charging Moro rebels.
I'm like, what is this for?
Yeah.
My favorite one of the Spetsnaz Weaponology episode is the man is talking about the Spetsnaz and all their special roles, and then it immediately cuts to this ginormous meat of a man shirtless with a PKM.
The Russian phrase is Войска специального назначения, which literally translates to special purpose forces.
He's also like hip deep in a lake, just like hip firing the PKM into the sky.
Like Russian
Craig,
Rambo.
When you edit this, please, I know you might say no, but like look at the end of the Green Beret episode. It's when they're talking about the 1911 and they're talking about the Americans in the Philippines. It is the funniest shit. This like sound effect of this native islander rushing an American soldier.
Almost 100 years had passed since the regular Army's plan to replace the .45 caliber was challenged by charging Moro rebels.
And it keeps replaying the scene, and the sound effect is so bad. It is so fucking funny. I'm telling you.
Maybe Weaponology can get a podcast of its own.
That'll be the follow-up.
Yeah, maybe in the future.
We'll see. Talk to my agent. We'll get that maybe worked out.
Can I have 10 seconds here? I just got another beverage, and if you work for RTIC, hit us up for a sponsorship. This was like kind of warm when I put it in. This is cold as shit now.
Yeah.
Like it gave me brain freeze.
Somebody gave me that cooler as a gift recently, and it's dope. It's also waterproof, so when you're in the pool, you can just let it float around in the pool and just unzip it whenever you need a drink.
Dude, this cooler.
We're at 40
badass.
minutes and we haven't talked about a weapon yet.
Yeah. It's cooler.
RTIC. Taste the difference.
I'm sure we'll touch on like Spetsnaz training throughout the episode.
That's later
so,
on in the episode.
Yeah.
Just want some more notes before we get started. Notes, I should say. So Dr. Dorian has a great quote. They're asking everybody who they
quote of the episode.
Yeah, quote of the episode. They're asking everybody who they got in this episode, who they think is going to win. Dr. Dorian simply says,
I have to give the edge to the Green Beret. They're from the United States, and that's my hometown.
And what I love about that is I don't care who you are, like you can't be rooting against the Green Berets.
Yeah.
Like you ask someone on the street, like in America, and just like who'd win in this? Of course the fucking Green Berets. Why? I don't know. I don't even know who the Spetsnaz are. But like you gotta root for your dog in the fight.
The first time rewatching this episode though, I saw that quote and I just thought there was any remote sliver of neutrality in the sim out the window.
Yeah.
He summed it up.
Yeah. And very last note, do you think there's a lot of shots of like how these two groups have rivalries? Do you think the beef between these two experts are real? Because they're not really actors.
No.
No, yeah, the beef's not real between the experts. I think there's like an interview where Sonny talks about the producer had him flip off the camera for that shot where he's flipping off the Green Berets. He's not flipping off them. He's flipping off the producer, and they like cut that in. I think there was a lot of friendly banter. They talk about it in the aftermath of this episode too. That there's like a lot of friendly banter between them, and a lot of that stuff is just spice for the cameras.
You can almost tell it's just for the narrative.
Yeah. But when you're a kid, that's convincing.
Oh, yeah. You're like, it was Rocky versus Ivan Drago all over again.
Right.
You're like, come on, get him, America.
I want to caveat that, like, all my stances from the episode now, this is all from rewatching it, like, within a week, 6 times in a row. When this came out in high school, I was fucking hyped.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that before, where like the previews. Remember, at the end of each episode, they would have like a preview of next week. This one was like, holy shit! Like
I loved the Green Berets, and I had no idea who the Spetsnaz were. And oh man, I think I've said on a previous podcast, Dan spoiled this episode for me he was at the lunch table and he goes, I had the episode recorded at home, and he goes, Matt, did you see the BS that happened on Deadliest yesterday?
That could only mean one thing.
Right. And I was like, what did you mean by that? Like, did our guys lose? And sure enough, I was just as butthurt as the rest of you guys.
Future me is sorry.
Yeah. I went through 3 phases with this episode. 1, I loved the Green Beret when I was a kid. Then I rewatched it, and when I was in the military, I was like, they should have put in like Marine Corps MARSOC. Marine Corps, hoorah!
Yeah.
And then how I rewatch it, I'm like, this episode's just kind of bullshit.
Yeah, but we'll get into it. So finally, we're getting into the weapons. So we're starting at, I think it's mid-range.
Yeah.
So the Mossberg Shotgun, brought by the Green Berets. Stats are range of 65 yards, ammo's 12 gauge, an 8-round mag, and it's pump action. So get into the test. Jeff asks,
You ever shot at a pig before?
which I don't know why that's just a funny throwaway line. Like, no.
He said not recently.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know what the thought process was behind this test. I assume, like, hey, this is a pig. This is what would maybe happen if you shot a real human with this. But he just, like, unloads into this pig. Like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? They're like, whoa! Like, what do you think is going to happen in this test? And, like, did you really need a test for that? So I guess I'll turn it over to you, Mike. What do you think about this test?
Shotguns can kill pigs. I have nothing more to say. No.
Well said.
So
who did the shotgun?
This is me and Lucas before the show. We split the weapons, and I like to think I took the lame weapons. Other than the frag grenade, two of the 3 weapons I took aren't actually things used to kill people. Shotguns, at least in Army doctrine, are not meant to kill people. They're meant to open doors. That's it. Marines actually have the M1014 Benelli, and they actually train with room clearing with it. And the Army does train with room clearing shotguns, but you rarely use it. Most things I saw say you carry a couple extra shells if you need to open another door. And the big thing with what is the simple fact that proves that no one uses the shotgun in CQB is that the Mossberg got replaced by the M26 Mass, which is the small little thing that fits in a backpack just because it's smaller and it does the same job. So the whole idea of even bringing shotguns doesn't make sense. I get that the combat's supposed to be like CQB, but Army doctrine is you're going to still just use your M4 because it's a carbine. It's small. That's the whole point of it. And even before the M4, the Green Berets were famous for using the MP5 for close range. The shotgun's a shotgun. It's pump action, I guess. It's very reliable. A lot of people love the Mossberg 500. So it's not a bad shotgun. It's actually really high regarded and like a very loved weapon. But an actual use case for it for military use is shooting off the hinges of doors and shooting up a hole. They're called master keys.
Yeah, see, I think Mike is having what I might call katana syndrome, where you have like a shotgun like this, and you might think that it has like this like books written about it and these storied history. But then you Google and you're like, this is a shotgun. So interesting to know that it wasn't used to kill people. I didn't realize that. So.
It can be.
I can tell you why.
Used to kill people.
It doesn't pierce body armor. Shotgun shells don't go through body armor.
I get the vibe that the show is just feeding into this like video game logic, where it's like you get shotguns in video games at close range. Of course, you're gonna get it.
Don't worry, people at home. Whenever I get tagged in, I've been preparing for this shotgun conversation my entire life.
Yeah, I'll shelf this for Matt's Sega talk.
Yeah.
So moving on to the Sega.
Sega shotgun.
We have a range of 80 yards, 12 gauge ammo, 10 round mag, and semi-automatic. So during the test, Max says that he's using technique and speed, or that he notices, I think it's Sonny who tests it, it's technique and speed. So I guess I want to ask you, Dan, was there something like that maybe I was missing in terms of his technique with how he was using the shotgun?
From what I could see, Spetsnaz...
He just ran across, like...
Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, maybe I'm missing something.
With, like, the shotgun Sega technique that's
was he doing anything special when he's demonstrating the shotgun?
So he doesn't do anything special that's actually in the test. Like, Matt Anderson mentions after the test, I don't care for their flippy, twisty run and gun technique. I think he says those exact words. And Sonny, it cuts to clips of Sonny doing, like, this and flips on. Yeah, he's doing, like, gun yoga and flips on the ground. And we can get into that if you want. But
that was actually my next question is, like, what's the actual point, independent of Deadliest Warrior, is there any point to this type of movement?
No.
So, yeah, I don't think the Spetsnaz really train anything like that. It seems to be something that's very, it caters really to Sonny's particular, like, training regimen. The Spetsnaz do train in mobility exercises and also vertical and horizontal displacement. So, like, the idea is to if you keep moving, and, you know, if you don't have cover available to you, if you can keep moving and confusing your opponent, right, to where you are, they can't hit you. And also trying to make motion like one fluid motion, basically. So, like, if you're transitioning from standing to prone, instead of dropping down and kind of like laying, it's the idea is to make it like maybe you'll twist around, right? I can't do it in this chair, but Sonny does like has a video where he takes it and twists, and gets into crouch, and then like shows how you can get into prone from that. So I don't want to discount it entirely.
From your research, does it seem like that? Did you say that was like Spetsnaz wide, or was that just like Sonny's own like gun system?
I would say it's mostly Sonny's own gun system. The Spetsnaz do train a lot in martial arts, and like I said, the movement while firing, but I think a lot of it is honestly like tactical. And I think they play it up hardcore in this episode. You have to remember, with these experts, even in an episode like this, which is a rare one where we have legitimate like people who were the warriors, they have these experts play it up. You know, these people are trying to perform. And so for the Spetsnaz, they probably wanted them to do like, hey, do some of the cool like flipping and twirling around on the ground stuff because it looks neat. But you notice when Sonny does the actual shotgun test, what does he do?
Walk.
he shoots the guy, and then he turns, and then he shoots the other ones, and he does the same thing for the Makarov test. Makarov test is fake, but we'll get to that. He does those when it's actually time to do the test. So, I'd have to say it's not a completely illegitimate thing, but I think it's played up a lot for the cameras in this episode.
And the American audience, too, because you're supposed to be, like, everyone watching this show is mostly American.
Yeah.
And you're at home going, whoa!
Yeah, if I could add, too, that whole flipping and twisting and twirling thing, Matt Anderson says a legendary meme that I've seen on memes everywhere, where he says, if you want a backward flipping hatchet attack, then you call Spetsnaz. I've seen a million memes with the backward flipping hatchet attack. I think it goes into a lot of the propaganda that the Spetsnaz put out about their training into the public. Look up Spetsnaz training on YouTube and stuff. It is all, so you can get like a cool RT documentary where they're doing the obstacle course, but a lot of Spetsnaz videos you'll find are them doing these very weird, like niche, like a guy laying down straight and them like breaking boards over his abdomen.
Look at the
hitting him with a hammer.
Look at the weaponology episode. There is literally a man diving into a pit of fire.
Yeah. Yeah. The stuff they put out to the public is very showy, I've noticed. It's very like, it reminds me of like the fake martial artist stuff where, you got a guy punching like boards and breaking them in half. Like it looks way more impressive than it is. I think that's just part of like an intimidation factor, like putting it out there that I'm not saying they don't have some real substance behind them, because we will get into their actual training. I think that like flipping and twisting, a lot of it is their image that they put out there.
Can I get a quick word about the combat movements? So what Matt was saying, the prone standing, that is a widely trained tactic for almost all modern militaries. In the Army, we call it the 3 to 5 second rush. So it's like if you're in a field and all of a sudden you're getting shot at, you can't just stay in the field. There's no cover. So what you do is you drop, you hit the deck, and then you just stand up, sprint 3 to 5 seconds, drop, and keep repeating that. The logic is the amount of time it takes for them to acquire a target, then reacquire the target, you're breaking that up by doing that. And that's really about the only movement you're going to be doing in an actual gunfight, is trying to rush to cover. In like most other movement, actually all other movements is crawling, is sprinting from cover to cover, and then on your in the prone crawling. That's about it in an actual gunfight.
Like, so if that's such a good technique, why don't you ever do that in Warzone?
I do. It actually works in Warzone.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
the classic slide around the corner and get,
You heard it first. #1 Warzone tip podcast. So
I had the exact same training in the Marine Corps too, so that must be just United States military wide.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the edge. So this was, for someone who doesn't really care that much about guns, this was an extremely frustrating statement from Max. He says, they ask him, why he gives the Sega the edge, and he's like,
between the Mossberg and the Sega shotgun, no question, Sega shotgun, because it's semi-automatic and you don't have to pump it.
You had to test to figure that out?
Yeah.
Like,
so,
I guess I'll just say, like, if you have, like, I'm sure a hardcore gun person could have a preference over, a Mossberg versus a Sega. I like that it does this. But, like, that alone is why you're giving it the edge. Why do any tests?
Let me tell you guys how it is at home. On this podcast, we are going to get in some heated discussions about the pistols on this episode, and we're going to get into a heated discussion about this guy right here, the Etool shovel and the ballistic knife. The shotgun, when you look at the results of the episode, how close it was, shotgun has the biggest kill differential between it. The Mossberg is it's famously a reliable weapon. The Army issues it for opening doors, like Mike said. The Sega is an urban assault shotgun. It is magazine fed, it's semi-automatic. The Spetsnaz use it if they're clearing out a building, okay? If the Green Berets knew they were going into an urban assault operation, they would have a Benelli M4, the M1014, like Mike was saying. They would have a semi-auto shotgun.
They can bring whatever weapon they want. Any special operations groups, not limited by whatever military issued weapons. Even
at the beginning of this episode, Jeff Desmoulins says, I think the Green Beret is bringing the latest technology, but the Spetsnaz is bringing the better training. Of course, the thesis at the end of this episode is that the Spetsnaz are better trained, but they win because they have a semi-auto shotgun and not a pump shotgun. Does that mean the entire show is completely arbitrary and doesn't mean anything? Yes, it does.
Because if they were wearing armor, neither of the shotguns would get kills.
Do I give the Sega the edge over the Mossberg? It depends. Would I want to carry a Sega with me for miles and miles. This big, heavy, ridiculous thing with like a 10-round magazine of 12-gauge shells. Absolutely not. But I would rather carry the Mossberg. If I was clearing a building, you know, provided I wasn't the schlub that I am, and I was a Spetsnaz commando, I would want a semi-auto shotgun. Give the Green Berets the Benelli. They were done dirty right up front. They blow through this segment in 5 seconds. It's very easy to not argue about this one because it is obvious. Like, yeah, the rapid fire gives it the edge. But it's the most important matchup statistically. So it's easy to overlook. It's easy to forget that this test even happened. And if you're mad at home, you should be.
Yeah. Does anybody disagree with anything Matt said?
No, well said.
Thank
Matt,
you. I've been preparing my whole life for that shot.
Can I ask something? I remember as a kid, I said the Sega's so cool, and you're like, well, not really, because semi-automatic mag-fed shotguns are notoriously jam. Can you say something about that?
I can. So I did want to mention that something really cool about the Spetsnaz weapons that differ from the Americans, kind of in philosophy, all of the Spetsnaz weapons are built on like the AK platform. And they're all named after the guys that invented them, except for the Sega, because that was a post-Soviet collapse weapon, so it's named after a company.
The game console?
The Sega Genesis. Some guys pronounce it Saiga. I say Sega because Drew Sky says Sega. What I will say about the reliability issue. So the Sega was having problems where if you kept the magazine compressed inside the gun, it wasn't feeding. To my knowledge, that's still an issue, but I don't know if it's relevant for this episode, really. And the Sega had a lot of reliability issues where it wasn't feeding lower-end brass. And I actually looked into that. This is a little bit of a gun nerd thing, but I will say. The Sega has 2 separate gas selectors on it, so there's a high gas and a low gas. And a lot of guys, when they buy this weapon off the market, get like cheap low brass and shoot it out of the Sega and don't set it to the higher gas setting so it doesn't feed. I watched there is a gun channel that's like Colin Noir or whatever. You can look up. He just kind of does gun porn videos. And he has a video that's called Why My Sega is a Beautiful Piece of Shit or something. And it shows him misfeeding every other shot. And I'm like, has this guy ever taken this gun apart? Does he know that there's 2 gas settings on it? Because then you can find videos of like redneck mountain people living in Wyoming, and their Sega runs fine. And that's because those guys probably looked at it and like, hey, what's this thing do? They read the manual and they were like, if I'm shooting the low brass, I better turn it up to the high gas.
Let me fix that. Hey, what's this thing do?
How did they read the manual? Russians, like, their alphabet's like in wingdings.
Right, yeah, that's true. Well,
on the topic of Sega reliability, in the show, doesn't the Mossberg misfeed?
Yeah, but that's
in the B-roll footage.
Yeah, okay. if you show when they like first show the Mossberg, Matt Anderson is shooting it and he short strokes the Mossberg. Like maybe I could send you that freeze frame, Craig, or something. Like
it's very subtle.
He's going down like this and he ejects it and you can watch the red shell like jam in the chamber and they cut away like that.
I got a question.
It's yet another blink and you miss it.
Yeah. I got a question. Craig, the non-gun guy, can you define short stroke?
Well,
I'm just
careful.
kidding.
Well, everything's a short stroke if you don't have a long stroke. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I think that's an Olympic swimming competition.
Yeah. So we got 5 more of these things to fucking
yeah.
Let's keep it moving.
This was an important one, so I wanted to take the time on it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So moving on to explosives. So the Spetsnaz bringing the RGD-5 stats are a range of 50 yards, 4 inches, 11 ounces, and a kill zone of 3 yards. So they put it in a washing machine. Why do they put it in a washing machine?
So in the show, I'm covering the RGD-5. So the narrator says in the show it's to simulate a vehicle. To simulate, I can't remember if it was against the vehicle or being in a vehicle. Either way, it's irrelevant.
Why? Go to a junkyard and get a vehicle for the same price as a washing machine.
Also, why do they need to simulate
why
a vehicle?
is a vehicle being factored into the simulation?
The Green Beret.
Like, I didn't even think about that because like they don't even have body armor. So why test what it would do in a vehicle?
Yeah.
I mean, I've noticed too, maybe this is part of it, is the show's production is very much constrained from like what they can afford.
Also,
so maybe they just could like grab like a shitty thing. This is what we can afford to demonstrate with, because they've reused ballistic gels.
Yeah.
My washer broke last night. Want to blow it out?
Seriously though, like let's give them the benefit of the doubt for a second. Let's say there was some practical means of testing it on a vehicle. Does a washing machine translate to a Humvee?
No.
Or an armored
the reason
MRAP?
the reason they did the washing machine, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure, is because like they probably had it on hand, and
Yeah.
these tests are fake. Like all explosive tests on Deadliest Warrior are fake.
And
they're like C4.
It looked
just like a mild, like low grade.
I got such an impression that the Spetsnaz were constantly being dealt the dirty this time, just because they bring up many good points about that washing machine. I think it was Maxim that says it was like absorbed a little bit, and sure, that's fine, but the more important thing he notes is that it's adding fragmentation to the grenade. So you're essentially muddling your test of that frag.
Yeah.
Like half of those, I almost said gel dummies, but they're foam dummies. So presumably at least like half of those have washing machine bits in them, not grenade.
Why foam dummies
grenade
too?
frag.
I did want to note, Dan, they give the kill zone for the RGD5. They listed it
Ridiculous.
as 3 yards. And they say that the maximum range is 50 yards, which is really funny.
I looked that up. You have to throw a baseball 45 miles an hour to try to get about 50 yards. You are not throwing that grenade 45 miles an hour.
Even if you take that 3 yards as like the shockwave kill radius, even that is inaccurate.
Yeah, Mike, you want to?
I looked this up. The range 50 yards is like the ideal if you're an infantryman training on these grenades all day to throw that. When I went to, I can't speak for Lucas, but I went to grenade range. I did not throw 50. I maybe made it half because that shit's heavy.
Yeah.
Can I tell
maybe if you're Aaron Rodgers, you can.
Can I tell my throwing a grenade story first time? They hand you this thing, and I'm like, how can I blow myself up with this accidentally? Is your first thought. Well, you get it down in the pit, and you have an instructor, and I pull it, and I go, and you throw it. Your first thought immediately is, I did not throw that far enough. Your instructor tackles you down, like kind of gets on top of you as like a precaution thing. The shockwave that comes off those things like makes your heart skip a beat. It's pretty crazy, and it's not. They don't have a very big explosion. It's kind of like, but it's all the like shrapnel. Which when they do the tests on the show, they have these big fiery explosions. Yeah. That's not what grenades do.
Maxime, such Hollywood explosions.
Yeah. Maxime literally says before they test it, it's like directly after they show kill zone 3 yards. Maxime goes, and this has an effective fragmentation about 24 meters. It's like, oh, so it's more than 3 yards.
Yeah.
Like,
because they just rely on that explosion.
Yeah, it's hard to tell exactly what they mean by their statistics. But I do want to say, just to move on from the RGD5, when they're in the high-tech fight club, they do actually bring out a box of prop grenades, and it is the wrong grenade that Sonny's holding. They showcase the RGD5, and the first grenade that Sonny holds in his hand is a F1 frag grenade, which is a different one than the RGD5. However, when they go out to the range, they do have an RGD5. So that just strikes me as complete producer laziness.
F1 grenade, to be seen later in the Viet Cong episode.
You will see probably those same grenades in that crate.
And Saddam Hussein in season 3 uses the RGD5 as well, probably because they just had the prop laying around.
A lot of recycling going on.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm texting my mom for people watching.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add from the RGD5, the saving grace of that entire thing was just Sonny walking away smoking a cig as it was presumably cooking.
Yeah, terrific meme.
Yeah. Mike, do you want to tell your story about that person you went to basic training with in the grenade?
Oh, yeah. So this is just a classic basic trainingism. I'm sure Lucas and Dan had it. It's like the first weekend we're there, we're still in processing. And it is stressful when you're in processing. They keep you up all night, and you're just like spending all day in a building, like getting shots, filling out paperwork. Anyways, this guy gets to the first weekend, and we see him go in and go talk to the company first sergeant, who's like, you don't, as a private, you don't talk to the first sergeant. He's in charge of all the drill sergeants. and he's big shit. And he goes and talks to him, and then he comes out and he hugs another private. Then we find out when we do fire guard at night, we have to have a double shift, and we have to have 2 people staring at him all night while he's sleeping. Well, it turns out he went to the first sergeant and he said, "I'm gonna kill myself, and I'm gonna use the grenades to blow myself up and everyone around me."
Oh, jeez.
It's one way to try to get out.
Yeah. He was doing the Army speed run for.
He got there, the doors out closed, and he had his oh shit moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, not really funny story, but like kind of funny.
I feel like it's kind of funny because that dude's definitely he's like that's like a lying story. Like,
yeah.
You know,
if you're not in the military, you probably feel bad for this guy. You have a lot of sympathy. If you made it through basic training for any of the services, you're probably like the first weekend. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
That guy's sitting at home. Did I ever tell you about when I was in the Army?
Yeah.
With his like Go Army USA shirt
I
on.
threatened to blow myself up with a grenade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny. They ask like who would want to test like the time delay on the grenade. That guy would.
Yeah.
So the M67, range of 40 yards, 3.5 inches, 14 ounces. Hey,
we're still talking about the grenade?
Yeah, 3.5 inches is plenty. So kill zone of 5 yards. So during the test, they throw the grenade into a quote enclosed space. Like a lot of the explosives, there's 0% chance this was not a controlled demolition.
It's like 3 pieces of plexiglass, and they hang a pig inside.
It's like a vacuum chamber.
Yeah, when I'm hiding, I usually stand in a 1x1 box.
Yeah. Yeah. He goes into a closet. You call that? It was really like a closet.
The Spetsnaz guy is like,
they'll never look at me here.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, Maxim complains that his blast was absorbed by the washing machine, which is fair. And then Max says,
"You know what I think will settle this? Why don't we just go look at the high speed?"
No, Max, that's not going to settle it. That's not going to do anything. Real quick, too, there's a very minor editing goof where the sound effect for a lower third coming up happens. There's no lower third.
We've got a greater mass of high explosives in the M67.
I would not normally say this, but I'm going to be paying close attention to the editing goofs because I'm pretty sure, based on what we know about the production of Deadliest Warrior, how it was like terrible, that they just stopped giving a fuck at a certain point. So, but what was frustrating to me about this test is if you're comparing these grenades, which are presumably extremely, extremely similar, why would you not do the same test? Why would you do different tests? Because that doesn't tell you anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
right, yeah.
It's complete. I think that's a common theme with this episode. A
yeah.
lot of the tests are just bullshit and
I
don't
think
prove
it's
anything.
I
There's
think
no
what it
scientific
proves
data.
is my narrative theory, because this is just like they don't have real grenades, so they just rig it. So they're based on what the stats show and then what the tests that they rig up show. It's that the M67's drawback is that it's a heavier grenade. That's why it has a higher weight and a less range.
By a couple
right?
ounces.
Yeah.
Who cares?
The difference between 11 ounces and 14 ounces. Yeah. And then like they even listed as a 5-yard kill zone instead of 3. So I think the whole narrative is like Green Berets are just bringing a bigger grenade with better explosives, and I think that is true based on what I saw.
It's a more modern grenade.
Yeah, I think that is true based on what I saw, but like so fair enough, but why not just admit the test is just fake and say we got like equivalents? Probably because they're not equivalents. They wanted to do like a big, cool looking explosion. And
yeah. So Edge M67.
Sure.
Who cares?
It's a grenade.
Yeah.
Can I mention something about
Dan? Do you have any opinions on the Edge for the grenade?
He's coming back.
I heard the toilet flush in the distance.
Dan just got finished taking a shit.
Hey, if I have to, you'll see me crawl underneath this table and disappear for a minute.
Yeah. So we'll get his opinion after he cleans up.
So on the grenades, one thing to prove the sim is fake, the grenades don't have enough kills, especially if they're doing CQB battles. The grenades should both have way more kills, because like the tactics for like if 2 fire teams are in a fight, what the tactics would be is they're one team, the
Team Spetsnaz.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
but essentially,
America.
what you're doing is you're pressing the enemy, and you're moving up close enough to throw grenades, and that's just basic tactics. So the grenades should definitely both have a lot more kills, regardless of which one's better. And but the sim's the sim. You can't argue with the truth.
God Emperor Max Geiger.
Yeah. Dan, any thoughts on the Edge?
Honestly, yes, but let's move on.
Okay.
Let's get to that Etool, baby.
All right. Well,
next hour of the podcast.
Before you blow your load in the Etool, they have a little bit of a side segment about the training, Spetsnaz training. I know you had a lot to say about this.
So I do. So we get a wonderful meme of Jeff punching Max Ziem and him saying the line. I remember we quoted this like every day in high school. It was.
You don't feel that? Well, sure, I do feel I know how to absorb it.
Yeah, you think that's real?
So tolerance training is a big part of.
Yeah.
I almost don't even want to say like Spetsnaz training in general. Like when I was going to Krav Maga, like we almost did the. Obviously, we're not like Jeff Desmoulins.
Karate black belt.
Yeah.
Former paramedic.
I mean,
yeah.
That's a different story.
I think it speaks to like Russian Sistema mindset. Really, like the idea that they're. It's kind of, I'm making up this motto. It's not their motto, but from what I could generalize about it, it's kind of about rolling with the punches. And so there you get a literal example of that where it's like taking the hit and just kind of having the mental fortitude that you build in combat exercise to not panic.
Yeah, there's a legitimate logic to tolerance training.
Yeah. If I could get into Spetsnaz training, I would just say... we'll probably get into it again when they mention the pig blood segment, so I'll save that for that. But to earn a Crimson Beret, a soldier has to pass like a grueling obstacle course, a rappel course. You have to survive a session of brutal hand-to-hand combat exercises. Basically, they beat on you for like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And you just have to stay conscious. And if you get knocked out, you're out. You have to complete a 5-mile run through difficult terrain. There's a really good documentary you can find on YouTube that's done by RT, so keep in mind it is like Russian army propaganda, basically. But
take it for what it's worth.
I thought it was really cool because they're interviewing the instructors and they're showing these guys as they go through the different stages of the course. One guy's like, I got this. He flies through the rappel course, does really good, and then he gets knocked out in the hand-to-hand training. And then they end the episode on the 5-mile run, and you can see like the guys by the end are like grown men are crying and crawling across the ground, and
it's insane.
And they're like, the instructor's like, and we pay attention to how they fail too, and if he throws a fit, they're never coming back, and we'll get into like more brutality in Russian training, but the last thing I'll say is, their final tests, an extensive training regimen in a wide variety of areas ranging from underwater to airborne to medical. Like I said, the Crimson Beret does have an intellectual role like tied into it, much like the Green Berets do. I don't know if they quite... I think they focus a little more on direct action than Green Berets, but meaning like go here and kill these people kind of missions. But yeah, they're well versed in all the Russian military weapons too.
I think that role's more filled by like the Navy SEALs or like Marine MARSOC.
Yeah.
Then I think that's more geared towards them. Don't think that the Green Berets at this Russian training, that's like only that's like a Spetsnaz thing. The Green Berets do also, there's actually a show called Surviving the Cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goes,
I would fail Green Beret training. Let's be clear.
What's Surviving the Cut? It covers most of the U.S. Special Forces branches and the qualification courses. And I know people personally who've gone through it. They also do training like SEER training, which is essentially torture and prisoner of war training.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that to be misconstrued as like the Spetsnaz are the only ones that train.
That's
hard.
important.
Do that.
That's important to clarify. We are going to get into a segment. I have some stuff that the Spetsnaz do that would probably never fly in the American military, or at least the American public, but do not take that as like an endorsement of those of that like mindset or approach. And Also, don't take that as me saying like Green Beret. They have this segment where Sonny says like Green Berets are soft and weak and they can't take pain and they can't dish it out or whatever. And
I think they try to paint that picture through this episode.
It's part of the narrative of the episode, but like Green Beret training is really difficult, and Green Berets can certainly hold their own in like a firefight.
Yeah. Look up SEER training, which is
they lock you in a box.
Yeah, look up underwater survival training. They essentially drown you so you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
They do that for Navy SEALs, especially. I'm not sure about the Green Berets.
Yeah, I'll let Mike talk in a second, but I just want to make something very clear. The Russian Spetsnaz documentary is propaganda.
Yes.
Surviving the Cut is extremely honest.
Yeah.
No, not propaganda
Real.
at all. So I just want to make sure that that's very clear.
Watching grown men cry in that, like these tough, badass, like they've already proven themselves.
You're watching on the couch with a bag of chips. And you're like,
this is
I'm like sipping my beer, I'm like, that guy's a pussy.
This is not Surviving the Cup podcast, but I do want to say there is at the beginning of that episode they're showing the different exercises, and one guy, he's doing so well, and then he just shatters his ankle. Like his ankle just gives out when he's running. It just breaks and he's out. And you're like, you could be the toughest human being alive and that could just happen to you.
Yeah.
Like
if I'm not mistaken, I think that's like one of the main causes you drop out of SEALs. Like,
Yeah, you break something.
Yeah. It's usually your ankles.
This is not the Surviving the Cut, but I got to get my little story. There's one episode, I think it's like Navy SEALs or something, and this guy is like crab walking on the beach after like a day of exercise. He's bawling his eyes out, and the instructor's just going, "What are you doing, Smith? What 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 are you doing, Smith?" And then he goes, "You're going back to the beginning, Smith." It's the funniest thing you'll ever watch.
Yeah.
Poor
Mike,
Smith.
Mike, you want to get in your bit about
I
training?
just wanted to mention SEER School, but Dan Lucas already got it. And just real quick on the SEER School, it's no joke. Obviously they can't do what Russians do because Russians are insane and subhuman creatures. But it is like,
shout out to the Russian audience.
Before we even start this podcast, I read a book about the Green Beret selection process called Chosen Soldier by the famous author Dick Couch. That's his actual name. But
amazing.
But he covers like the entire training process from like the early on selection to the Q course to the actual where they go and role play training guerrillas. But the one thing he doesn't cover is them going to SEER school. Like all Green Berets have to go to SEER school. And like he asked some people about it, and they're like, it was like actually terrifying. Like he's like, the one guy's like, yeah, I cried for the next week every night I went to sleep. Like they legitimately torture American soldiers, and any military members can go to SEER school. It depends whether or not you need to. I know pilots have to go there, but they legitimately, you have to try to survive and evade capture, then resist torture. And it is like a horrifying thing.
Mike, I want to make sure the audience knows about that book. So that book was by who?
The
again?
legendary author Richard Couch.
But like, will they find it if they just search Richard?
wait.
Or does he have to go by a different name?
Oh, I don't have it in my desk. Oh wait, no, I do. Check it out. This is not Chosen Soldier, but this is another book he wrote later on about Army Rangers. This is.
That looks like the title.
Can that be the thumbnail?
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, Dick Couch book is the thumbnail.
Yeah. So they mentioned, I'll just real brief before we get into the Etool. They talk about Green Beret self-reliance training. I assume that that's true. They talk about that's a big part of the Green Berets also is like survivability and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to, at the risk of this being 4 hours,
right?
Gloss over that. That's
doing
true.
Good so far.
They operate in 12-man teams. I'll put it that way. They rely on themselves, but they also rely on their team.
Yeah. Okay. So on to special weapons, we have the most infamous weapon in Deadliest Warrior history in the flesh, the Etool.
No weapon holds a candle to the amount of pissed off like reactions I've ever seen to this episode than the Etool.
Since we're getting started, I'm gonna drink a little more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We have the stats of the Etool: 23 inches, 2.8 pounds, collapsible.
Still talking about the Etool.
Yeah. Matt Anderson said it's, quote, very widely used as a weapon. And the shovel, I actually had a question, and I can actually check it out. I asked Lucas if it was bladed. It's kind of like serrated here. I mean, this really isn't like a sharp version, but...
Mike's going to take this one, but I want to get my 2 cents in. I was issued one of these, and I used it during my infantry combat training in the Marine Corps. Not only is it a stupid and impractical weapon, I had to dig a hole with it that like a foxhole to sleep in. It is a stupid and impractical shovel also.
Can I mention real quick, my dad would kill me if I didn't mention his favorite story about his time in the service where he busted open a locked door with an Etool. He loves to tell me about it, and he broke the Etool. He bent it while opening the door.
I knew that's where that was going.
Yeah. So, Mike, go ahead. Give us your spiel.
Military grade.
I can sum this all up with the fact that every time I went to text you guys Etool, it auto-corrected to stole.
Got him.
That's
Big
about
couch.
it. That's all. No. So the Etool, the whole point is it's a utility tool. It's not your main. It's not like your main thing. It's a small thing you can carry on you anywhere, and it can help you dig combat fighting positions. And then also the blade on it is for cutting rope and other things. It's like an extra utility blade. Can it be used as a weapon? Yeah, but so can big stones.
Hey, can I ask you a question, Mike?
Yes.
In Army training, are you guys issued bayonets and knives?
M7
No.
bayonet.
No, we're not. Even furthermore, the bayonet training has more or less all been taken away.
Marine Corps still does it.
That's where I was going, was like, if you got into a close quarter situation, some situation where you didn't have like your gun available, which probably wouldn't happen in the Deadliest Warrior, like, you know, sanitized virtual gladiator arena or whatever. When would you ever, like, you are desperate if you're using the Etool as a weapon. Like, it's just the only thing you have in your hand, and you're like going full caveman trying to survive, basically, right?
We get issued like a K-bar and an M7. That can be, you don't fix it to your gun all the time. It's like a last resort. It can. We do bayonet training during the Marine Corps basic training. It's part of it. You're never going to use it, though. It's completely impractical. It's almost like for fun, to get out some aggression, because you stab tires with it that they have fixed to like trees. I think it's literally like an aggression get out.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say we have actually a very special segment coming up right now. We're going to have a live demonstration of the Etool. We don't have the money for a gel torso, so we're actually going to use Brendan.
Yeah.
To see if it lobotomizes him.
This is why we pay you the big bucks, Brendan.
Yeah.
Wait, here we're going to do this live on the podcast. Let me completely collapse this down. All right, Matt. Randomly tell me when you're going to attack me.
I'm going to attack you. I'm aiming my ballistic knife.
I'm not just going to stand still.
I'm aiming my ballistic knife.
Stand still.
Yeah. I missed with my ballistic knife. Oh, God.
That was in a controlled, safe environment, using this deadly, lethal weapon.
Normally,
I wasn't holding a ballistic knife.
Normally in Deadliest Warrior, we get matchups with weapons where one is clearly better than the other. We get matchups that are just completely mismatched.
Why is this the Green Beret special weapon?
Never in the show have I seen a matchup between weapons where I would rather have neither.
Yeah.
Why is this listed as either person's special weapon?
I think, in my opinion, the most bizarre thing about this being their weapon is that the Spetsnaz are famous for having their Etool, Spirka.
Yeah.
And they're trained to use it, and they actually have training manuals, whereas the U.S. Army has no training manuals on using a shovel, because if you're using a shovel, you're fucking desperate. But the Spetsnaz actually have manuals on using this Spirka as a weapon, and they actually properly edged it for a weapon, and it was even balanced as a throwing weapon. You can look on YouTube videos of people throwing this and sticking it like an axe.
Some of those... some of those throwing weapon episodes of like Weaponology too, when they showed it on there, those look aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on to the ballistic knife, 10 inches, it's under 1 pound, and it is spring loaded.
Still talking about the ballistic knife?
Dan, I think a million angry Americans about this episode are about to breathe some sigh of relief or an outburst of anger when you talk about this.
Yeah, so the ballistic knife itself, I could almost just sum it up as this, like, Hollywood mythos where in days of research, the best we could do is narrow it down to what I could find was I can't tell if it was a memoir or not, but it was a Soviet author.
Dick Couch.
Yeah. Vladimir Couch.
He wrote about it in one of his books, and that's sort of what started the mythos of the ballistic knife. And most of the ballistic knives you can purchase are American. They're
At
made
the flea market.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are you going to tell them about the NRS too?
I will.
Yeah.
I will. So there are other examples of actual ballistic knives, which I think the show probably should have used instead.
Probably couldn't get.
Yeah. So there's other knives that actually have been used by like KGB forces and stuff like that, where the NRS-2 that Matt mentioned is an example of a ballistic knife where in the hilt of the knife is actually a custom-made 7.62 bullet. So
that's why it's called the ballistic knife, because it shoots a bullet out of it.
It's actually ballistic.
Yeah, it's like something that a spy or a KGB guy would carry like on them, because you could get like a real quick like you could
like,
if
it's
you
like
had
a pen
to
or something.
Yeah, if you had to instant kill someone, you're not carrying a gun, but you can like deliver a bullet
some
to
shit
the head.
you expect to see in like the spy
Dan-
museum.
Yeah.
Dude, on the show, when he clicks that button and that spring like comes out, it
Yeah.
looks like Tom and Jerry.
So in researching the ballistic knife, I found a lot of videos of people actually test firing it at the range. Very rarely in the video, like the reenactment that we see with the Spetsnaz, we get like a perfect stick in that terrorist's neck. It is visceral.
He shoots it from like here too.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
Perfectly
like not even
aimed
aiming it
from the side.
Yeah.
In real life, people I've seen testing the ballistic knife, you're lucky if you get it to stick into a log once out of like 30 shots.
Yeah.
So it's very impractical. It almost comes off as like a novelty item.
Yeah.
I'm sure in real life, Sonny could kill me with it. I'm sure.
But bottom line is the Spetsnaz did not use the ballistic knife we see.
If you're looking for a covert special weapon, there are many other KGB options at the table for you that are way better than a spring-loaded knife.
Yeah, Mike, you had a question for Dan?
I just want to know why in the show they say it's like a 58 feet per second, 39 miles per hour, and then in the test you can see the knife sitting in backwards on the wooden target. So
yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up
Yeah.
because I would have forgotten. There's this weird, I'm sure you'll cut to it.
Metal ball filled with blood?
Yeah. Well,
I don't understand.
Christmas ornament looking thing.
Each ball represents an opponent's head.
Yeah.
But so in the episode, you see the ballistic knife go through the first two balls effortlessly, but when it hits the third ball, it starts to rotate, getting that classic tilt, or like, it sort of ricochets. It sticks into the target backwards, and after rewatching it maybe like 30 times now, I still don't understand really what happened. I guess it just had enough force to stick in on the like pommel end, because it's not sharp. Like, you see it flying through the air. It's a rounded edge that goes into the spring portion of the knife, but it still sticks in the target. I don't know what's going on there, but
it just barely gets in there, and you could see it just hanging
I
there
think-
too. So it just barely had enough.
I guess the
force
wood was soft enough where the back end was still...
Yeah, the production designer in that interview he did with Thane Thran mentioned that palm targets are a great target practicing because it's a very like soft wood that almost anything can go into.
Yeah,
So-
I think if you had that sort of like over rotation in real life and you got hit by the back end of that ballistic knife,
Nothing.
whatever.
Yeah. Also, okay, I guess we'll get
Yeah.
into this when we get into the edge. Let's.
Yeah, so...
Spetsnaz didn't use the ballistic knife shown. Nobody uses that.
There's very little evidence, if any, it's secondhand.
So Edge goes a ballistic knife. Apparently they treat Dorian as the tiebreaker, which they've never done before and don't do later in the episode when there's a tie. They just have a fucking tie. On a different show, and I'll bring this up later, I'll save it. I don't think this was the best choice for like melee, but we'll save that. So, what do you guys think?
As far as the edge goes,
Yeah.
Disagree.
So
Can I still pick neither?
I'll get out all of my points, people. The Green Berets, if they needed to do hand-to-hand combat, train with knives and bayonets. So did the Spetsnaz. The Spetsnaz train with a shovel, specifically. So I don't know why the Green Berets are given the shovel. In the aftermath, they mentioned Etool Howard. I did not research that. You guys can tell me what you found about that. The last thing I'll say, taking it for what it's worth. Ballistic Knife versus Etool. Would I rather have a knife, like a big combat knife, or an Etool? I'd probably rather have a combat knife. Would I rather have a knife, a ballistic knife, or an Etool? The ballistic knife sucks. It's a gimmick. It's something you buy as a teenager and like shoot into a tree over and over again.
Which is ironic because Sonny calls the Etool a toy.
Yeah, right.
It's and he has a Happy Meal
This
toy.
is not. It's true. This is not a weapon, but it can be used as one. And even though the ballistics gel test they do is fake, you can see that it's like a cracked skull. Lucas pointed that out to us when we were watching it.
Yeah, look at the skull beforehand when they hit it with Etool. It's like already cracked.
It's
or
already
like
cracked
missing
open.
It's missing the gel over. This has some weight to it.
That's got some good weight. You could knock a knife out of somebody's hand with that bad boy.
I would trust the Etool more.
And my dad broke a door open with it. You could break somebody's skull open with it.
There are many models of this thing too. This is the one that is issued. This exact model. This is the one they have on the show too. It's got some weight. It does feel like it might like break your wrist if you hit something with it. Though.
Yeah, right.
Mike.
Also, the last thing I'll say, and then I rest my case on Ballistic Knife and Etool forever. This is a episode with two warriors, and it features sniper rifles, assault carbines, shotguns, handguns, and explosive grenades. Why is the Etool tested? Why even bring it up?
It adds an unnecessary category.
What?
That's true.
What 5-on-5 scenario did these guys run out of ammo and every single other thing? And the Green Beret reached back here, pulled out an Etool, unscrewed it, and hit a Spetsnaz guy in the head with it.
How desperate do you have to be?
Yeah.
I rest my case.
Mike, you have something on
Edge Etool.
You have Etool Howard.
Yeah,
over there?
so I did research Etool Howard. So there's a lot of proven events where American soldiers, American Marines, what have you, have killed people with Etools. And it's rare and far between, but it has happened. However, Etool Howard did not kill people with an Etool. He did
I didn't expect this.
Get his Medal of Honor. Legit. He did something really brave. He led a bayonet charge, killing 27 people. There's a counterattack where he
With
killed
Etools,
7
right?
more people. But at no point did he ever resort to an Etool. However, what did happen is Etool Howard was an instructor at, I believe, an officer academy. Sorry, I just mixed Etool Howard up with someone else. I mixed Etool Howard up with
Dick Couch.
Benjamin Wilson did all that.
Sorry, Mike.
Etool Howard did do a lot of good things in his. He's a honorable Marine. However, the legend comes from when he's teaching at officer academy, and he's saying the knife is expensive. Like, why are you gonna get this expensive knife that's not issued to you? Just use your damn Etool. It already has a blade on it. It's more or less like a battle axe. You don't need it to get a knife if you're not issued a knife. And then people just started making rumors about him, and he tried to squelch them, but like these rumors just grew out of hand. And
If people are wondering about Etool Howard, it's because on the Aftermath they get a question, but from the biggest liar I've ever heard, because the guy says, I know several guys with confirmed Etool kills.
No, you don't.
Yeah, biggest liar ever. But
In Warzone.
yeah,
More
right.
than one?
Yeah, in wars. Yeah, but he asks that liar asks
That liar knows some liars.
he asks, why do the Green Berets use their Etool as a special weapon? Which is a great question. And Barry Jacobson answers, there's a story about this guy named Etool Howard who killed 27 North Vietnamese soldiers with his Etool. Lucas was little intoxicated. He was on my couch watching this with me, and he just started laughing so hard. He's like, 27 people? Give me a fucking break. So I was wanting to know if that story was true or not, that this man by himself is just cutting his way through North Vietnamese guys with an
He
Etool.
definitely fought them, and he definitely killed them with an Etool. No, alone, also no. But, yeah. It's like I said, he's not like it's some sort of fake or phony, but at the same time, the Etool story's full of shit.
I found him as soon as I Googled him. I could not find anything saying he killed people with an Etool.
I found from Task and Purpose, they have an article about it where he talks about it, and he's like, I tried to stop it. I tried to save him, but he tried to stop this story. It comes from him teaching.
Craig, cut to the Walter White going, tried to save him.
I tried to save him!
So, Mike, it's another case of Deadliest Warrior getting carried away with the narrative.
Yes.
Just real...
rigging the edges so they're
quick,
even.
Can I want to mention something about close quarter combat, or CQC, as we Metal Gear Solid 3.
Sure.
In the Army,
Foxhound.
we get trained. We have pugilism training. It's like those big. It's the big sticks that look like giant ear cleaner Q-tips. Yeah, they look like
ear
big
cleaners.
And all that is to train you is how to use your rifle to push someone away, so you can shoot them with your rifle. That's.
It's funny. I've seen you guys practicing with those at Goodfellow when I was there, like the giant ear cleaners.
We use them too. They hurt way more than you think they're going to. Like you go into like combat. Look, we do Marine Corps martial arts. We have our own program, and we do a lot of hand-to-hand combat. And the entire premise of it is how quickly can you get someone to the ground or push them back for space.
But wouldn't that be a more effective weapon if the bludgeoning object was attached to a chain that you circle around and hit a guy with?
Wait, so Mike, you're telling me that the Army teaches the two
Yes,
piece.
essentially you're trying to create distance to bring your weapon back up to shoot them.
That sounds accurate.
The Nasher two-piece from Gears of War.
I just want to say, in the Navy, they don't teach us any of this hand-to-hand stuff. So when we saw those ear cleaners at Goodfellow Air Force Base, that was the funniest shit I've ever seen.
What I'm getting at, you are high and mighty. You think you were the most badass until you take one of those to the side of the head. You're like, how quickly can I get out of this?
I just remember walking to school thinking, like, what is this American Gladiator bullshit?
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the long range.
Yeah.
So
back on track.
Yeah, back on track. So the Green Berets, forgot their name, bring the legendary M4A1 carbine.
Ever heard of it?
Yeah. Stats.
We have a prop one for the record. This is not a real rifle on the table. Yeah. Don't worry.
Most of the time on this show, we bring in fake props.
Yeah,
all the time on this
Pretty
show.
much all of them except for the Etool say made in China.
I think that's like an old airsoft gun that says
that
made
is
in
the
China
lowest of the low airsoft. Show them the mag.
Does not even. Yeah.
It's a bat for your
airsoft
battery
mag.
Yeah.
It loads through the scope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the stats are 660 yards, ammo 556, 30 round mag, and 900 rounds per minute. I guess I'll ask Lucas, is the range accurate? Because I feel like that's very far. And is this the right pick for the Green Beret?
Yes, it's the right pick. The range also, surprisingly, I will agree with. Just out of personal experience, in the Marine Corps, we train with the M16A2, and some of the females and the shorter males train with the M4 because the M16 is longer if they can't handle it. We train out to 500 yards with it. So maybe the 600 is a bit of a stretch, but it's not hard to qualify expert in the Marine Corps. And just out of personal experience, I shot 10 out of 10 targets at 500 yards. So I can personally give that.
They train with M16s because they're poor.
So I actually competed in the Camp Perry President's 100 with a M16A2, and we did a 600-yard thing. As long as you have the dope for it, like
you account for windage and everything, and you have a hold at that point. You don't necessarily aim directly at your target. You kind of figure out where your hold is at, and you adjust. And it's honestly pretty easy. There's a lot of people who've never touched a rifle, a gun, even in their entire lives, and they go into the military, and you do weapons training for, You do dry firing for a week, which is firing without ammunition kind of practice. Then you do live firing with real ammunition. Most people are able to hit targets at like 500 yards. So the M16A2, the M4A1, the variations of the M4, it's a very approachable, very easy weapon system to use. Fires the 5.56 by 45 millimeter with a muzzle velocity of 2,900 feet per second on average. Very high. It's a very small bullet, coming with a pretty big powder load for how big it is, so it travels very fast, pierces through armor very easy, but it's a very small round. It's actually known for kind of over piercing sometimes because of how fast it's moving. The rounds a minute was pretty accurate, 700 to 950. It's capable of firing at distance, but most likely you're never going to fire that far. It was designed, especially the M4 itself, was designed from the M16 for close quarters combat. Pretty much all branches use it. The AR-15 is the common civilian equivalent. You see them everywhere. It's the most popular sporting rifle in the United States. They've done pretty significant testing on them, including dust tests, dirt tests, abuse tests, reliability, accuracy. And it was found like 90% of military personnel have faith. Like they did like a questionnaire, and about 90% trust that rifle and have faith in its reliability.
But you know, Deadliest Warrior taught me that the AR platform.
we're not there yet.
We will get
there. All right.
We're not there yet.
So they test the M4A1 carbine, wait for it, and a ballistics gel torso. They do a ballistics test with the ballistics gel torso. You heard it right.
Warrior.
Insane.
Never
Yeah.
thought it happened.
Yeah. I remember I was watching and I was like, oh my God, that's what it's for. That's what it's for.
I love the one they show too, that who shoots it in the show?
Matt Anderson.
Is it Matt? Okay. He shows it. He has
It's like a call.
10,000 attachments.
No,
to
so George Gomez has the one at the
Is
very
that what the one
beginning
with
with like
10,000?
he's like holding it in the Fight Club, and it's got like a flashlight attached to a flashlight. Like it's super. It's very tactical.
You would be hard pressed to find an M4 with less attachments.
The one Matt Anderson uses is like he's doing it left-handed, so I'm holding it awkwardly. He has like a Call of Duty spray painted one.
It's like
yeah.
woodland camo.
Can I correct myself real quick? I actually found my actual note. There is some controversy that the M4 malfunctions if not properly maintained. You were issued a weapon cleaning kit, and most likely it's going to be well maintained if you're in the military. It was 94% of post-combat soldiers, so it wasn't just any old guy. It was anyone who's been in a conflict rated it. 94% of them rated them as a very effective weapon system.
I do remember hearing like the M4A1s had a tendency, like not a tendency, that there were some cases where like M4A1s would explode.
I actually have a personal story of this.
That was part of like whittling it down, and the modern M4 is like pretty reliable. It doesn't explode on you.
It is, yeah.
How many weapons are left?
2 more after this.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been fixed, to a point. It's an open bolt system. The dust cover opens up and there's an exposed bolt when it's firing, which can lead to some malfunctions. When I was doing my firing training during the Marine Corps, I actually had a bolt explode inside of my gun. So nothing on the outside of the gun. I didn't get hurt at all, but inside the bolt, the piece that goes
Can
back
I
and
mention
forth,
something
shattered.
about that?
That's when you pull out the Etool.
So the weapons used in training, at least in my training, the Army trains with M4s, not M16s. But my company had M16s and even had M16A2s, the variant of the M16 used during the Gulf War, mind you. And it was not because they're like, oh, you need to train an M16. It was because they're so poor and they're so old. The guns were like held together with like spit and rubber bands. So Lucas's bolt exploding is not anything bad about the M4 AR platform. It has everything to do with just them
That
or
thing
like
had
their
probably seen,
trainees
like,
that
a
can use the
million
old
rounds.
shit that we're not going to put in combat anymore. So
The training's a lot in that way, like Deadliest Warrior. You just use whatever you get.
Essentially,
And then the weapon, if the weapon takes flack for it, then
Yeah, that thing had probably seen a million rounds. ARs and M4s and everything, they're very plug and play. You know, the armor there opened up my gun, broke it in half. He pulled out my old bolt, slapped a new one in there, and it was good to go in 30 seconds.
yeah. So they have a rapid fire test as well. Only I'll say about that is I think that and what might even been better TV if they had like a room clearing test, like just to show, because they have something like a similar
SWAT
skill
versus
test with the pistol
GSG-9
later on.
Yeah, they have a cool room clearing test with that.
I think that would have been way more interesting to see, okay, here's how this actually functions, not for accuracy, but how you would maneuver it and use it. So yeah, that's it for that test.
When we do combat training, we fire at like a distance of like 50 yards because that's what your close quarter is going to engage someone. And it's, you know, you stand still, they say go, you pull up and do like 10 shots and put it back down.
The standard Deadliest Warrior range, though, is like 10 feet.
Yeah, they
shoot a guy from 10 feet away.
10 feet, yeah. The tests are just kind of crap.
I do want to mention one funny meme, because I'm always looking for the memes on this one. They insert a lot of weird gun sound effects throughout this whole episode that aren't timed with actual trigger pulls, but the funny meme is Matt Anderson riddles that ballistic gel, like empties his mag on the ballistic gel, then takes a knee and pulls out a pair of binoculars
for 10 feet away
to look at the ballistic gel.
Matt's the target here. He goes, bang, bang, bang.
Let me check that grouping.
Well, also, he's like, his face is dead serious. Like, he's not doing it as a joke either.
He's checking his like grouping on the ballistic
Mike,
gel.
is that Army protocol to pull out a pair of binoculars?
No.
Big surprise.
All right, let's hear about this AK-74.
Okay, we got the AK-74, range 550 yards, so about 100 yards less. Ammo 545, 30 round mag, 600 rounds per minute. Can you talk about some difference between the AK-74 and the 47?
You're going.
Yeah, I got Craig's
sure. I mean, I could tell you, but
So I will say, the AK-74. They say it's the AK-74 carbine. There's no such thing as an AK-74 carbine. Like the M4 is the M4 carbine. The carbine most likely refers. It most likely refers to the AKS-74U, which is also known as the Krinkov. It's just a little slang. It's like a play on Kalashnikov. The show most likely couldn't get a Krinkov, as kits for them are very rare and expensive in the United States. So what they test on the show is like a full length, just civilian. It honestly looks like the same AK-47 they use in the Taliban test. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because AK-74s, as they go, are even a little more expensive. Brendan and I were taking a look at it, and it was like we didn't see like the muzzle brake that's typical on a 74, although it did have like a 74 looking mag. But anyways, I have my suspicions about it. Doesn't necessarily matter because they're testing it from 10 feet away, and both those guns will kill you from like 10 feet away. The difference between the 74 and the 47, fun fact, one was made in 1947, the other was made in 1974. That's why they have those dates. The main difference is the round. So the AK-47 fires the 7.62 by 39 millimeter round, and the 74 fires the 5.45 by 39 millimeter round. It has a nickname called the Poison Bullet because of the way it tumbles upon impact with human flesh or any flesh in general, and the horrific like cavity wound it leaves inside of you. I believe the 5.56 does something similar on contact with flesh, like it tumbles, but the 5.45 in particular leaves like this. The exit wounds on them are like, it's bad. It's got a nickname called the Poison Bullet for a reason. And
Escape from Tarkov taught me it was pretty bad.
The other advantage of 5.45 is that it fires at a higher velocity than the 7.62, so it can travel a farther distance. AK-74s are typically, they have a longer effective range, and they're typically more accurate than an AK-47. And because it's smaller round, you can carry more ammunition on you. I don't have a problem with them using a different gun in the test because it's testing the same thing. I think, you know, a Spetsnaz with an AK-74 Krinkov versus a Green Beret with an M4 carbine, I know we didn't get to the edge yet, but I agree with like the edge just being even. Like, I don't think it's controversial. They're both really good, legendary weapons.
It's whatever you're trained with.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the Spetsnaz themselves, it was a trait that they would get the most high-tech, best equipment possible for their units to use.
And
So I'm not surprised that Deadliest Warrior couldn't get their hands.
We could open up Pandora's box on like the M16 versus AK debate. You could do a whole podcast series on that.
We could almost just shelf that for a later episode.
We'll shelf it for IRA Taliban probably.
Yeah.
But in this case, I don't think a lot of the differences apply. I think they're comparable rifles, comparable rounds, and comparable operators handling them. So I am inclined to agree that the edge is just kind of determined on arbitrary factors.
I completely agree. Both extremely effective. I mean, you take the one you were trained with.
Like Deadliest Warrior's staple, you could always run with it and just keep complaining, but I'm willing to let it go.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
So I have one nitpick and one question. My nitpick is for both weapons, they're introduced as the primary weapon for special forces for both ones. Fun fact, they're the primary weapon for all military members of both countries to this day. So, don't know why they try to make it sound...
Yeah.
Now, the Green Beret were the first ones to get a carbine version of the M16 called the, Car 15? So, that is maybe...
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask Matt and Dan, the Spetsnaz use attachments on their weapons, right? Because that's one thing they try to note, and it's part of the narrative, is they're running their weapons naked.
Yeah.
And it's like, they would definitely have attachments, right?
So that was pretty funny. We both have copied the same transition word. I just wanted to say,
like merged.
You can look up Spetsnaz AK-74. So there's like a specific AK build called Russian Tactical. It's really expensive if you want to get one as an American. And it's basically taking, because the way the AK is built, it's harder to put attachments on it. So they designed a specific rail to put across it that allows you to put all those cute little Lego pieces on there like you do with the AR.
So
like George Gomez's M4 with
like holding up, it's like
30,
the size of the room.
30 different attachments on it.
It definitely feels like the Russian Kalashnikov build is very late to the game, but you can at this point in modern day get a very tactical looking AK.
Yeah, look up modern FSB,
but it did
assault
not
rifles.
start that way.
They have all sorts of all the little attachments. I do want to say, neat fun fact for gun folks out there: the standard sight color and laser color for American-made weapons is red, and for the Russian stuff, it's green.
Yep.
Russian lasers and sights are typically green, so...
It's weird because most of the stuff you could buy, that's the two colors that are
right.
too.
Why is that? The Russians were like, the Americans are making this red sight. They stole our color.
You'd realize that if you played Capcan.
I do main Capcan.
Green sight.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, wow. I would not want to get shot with that gun. So they tie the two weapons, which completely contradicts what they said 5 minutes ago, that Dr. Doran would be the tiebreaker.
Right.
So,
of course.
So they move on to longer range. Brendan, what are we at right now?
1 hour and 53 minutes.
That's it?
Woo! That's not bad.
Okay, well, not as bad as
We
I
could
thought.
make it in 2.5 if we...
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
We're past the Etool, so...
Yeah, that's true. The worst is behind us.
Yeah.
So, we have the Dragunov stats, 1,312 yards, not an inch more. Ammo, 7.62, 10-round mag.
Where do they get these numbers?
30 rounds per minute. I have kind of an unusual question. Where did this gun get this name? Because when I first heard about it playing video games, I thought it was like an Asian dragon weapon.
So I said earlier that American weapons all have designations like M4, M16, M whatever. It's all M's. Get something new. Get something new,
it stands
people.
for military.
Right, yeah.
States that start with letter
That's General Pod.
A lot of Russian
all
names
the
are
Russian guns are named after the guys that invented them. So the Kalashnikov,
Molotov cocktail,
the Makarov, and
the Dick Couch gun.
And in this case, Yevgeny Dragunov. So this was designed by Yevgeny Dragunov, and it was a period throughout the 50s and 60s. And I'll let you. I guess that answers your question.
Yeah, that's.
I'll let you be satisfied.
If you want me to get to the Dragunov, I will. Here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Dragunov was designed as the first DMR. Okay.
What's a DMR?
I'm so happy you mentioned
I'm
that.
glad
That
you
was my
asked,
biggest
sir.
issue with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They end up pitting it against the American M24, and it's a bit of a mismatch. So the Dragunov is coined as a sniper rifle. If you look it up on Wikipedia, it's called the Dragunov sniper rifle. I don't know where they got the yardage of 1312. I think
It outranges the
might be like the
M24,
maximum
which is
shot.
insane.
Which would not be the case. The Dragunov, you can use it as a sniper, sure. Like, I think I've mentioned before that you can use pretty much anything as a rifle. Like, as a sniper rifle, as long as it's a rifle. You're just hiding in cover and making a long-distance shot. But the Dragunov was designed as a DMR, and a DMR is a designated marksman rifle. So what that is, and I wasn't in the military, boys, but my understanding is in a squad, if you have a guy who's a particularly good shot, maybe it's not even that, it's just the
Not
guy that
Lucas.
gets picked. You get someone who you get like a larger caliber weapon that can reach out to distances and touch targets. So the Dragunov is more accurate on average, and it has a nice scope, so you can hit out to a longer range than the AK. So this would be the guy in the squad who's the best shot. They give him a Dragunov, so if there's someone pinning them down, if there's a machine gunner, the rest of the guys all have rifles, and maybe it's harder for them to reach out and touch him. This guy has a longer, heavy-barreled rifle with, armor-piercing ammo, and he can reach out and touch targets far away. The M24, as I understand it, you guys will get to in a second, is a sniper weapon system. It's called the M24 SWS because it's designed to be taken out in a two-man sniper team and do specific long distance shooting. Dragunov can be used as a sniper. It's mainly a DMR. It was designed to basically replace the Mosin Nagant, which was the Russian rifle through all of World War II. It fires the same round, but that is a bolt-action rifle that you have to feed into an internal magazine. Dragunov is rapid fire and external magazine, so you can do a quick reload. And I'll get to that after when we talk about the Edge.
Well, I got a question real quick. What is the round that it uses? Because there's kind of a misconception that it paints, because it puts the M24 and the Dragunov, I think it puts them both as 7.62, but it is actually a different round.
So of course, the 7.62 that the M24 is firing is like the 308, basically, like the American
7.62 full metal jacket.
That is the round.
Didn't
That's the round Private Pile is referencing in that. What the Dragunov fires is the 7.62 by 54 millimeter rimmed cartridge, which is a
for her pleasure.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a Russian developed round. It's big. It's fat, and you don't want to get hit with it. I guess I'll leave you with this until we get to the Edge. I think the Dragunov should have been pitted. Maybe the Green Berets disagree with this. Pitted against something like a M14 EBR, right? Like a modernized M14, because I think that's a DMR in the U.S. military, or an SR-25. In Season 3, the PSL, which is not a Dragunov equivalent, but sort of a knockoff DMR of the Dragunov, and the SR-25 go head-to-head in Season 3.
Dan, I got a question for you.
What's that?
You sound like you were fighting for your life in the bathroom there. How are you feeling?
I'm good. It was a Spetsnaz
Craig,
trial.
we're at 2 hours and you're doing this.
Swimming through blood.
Sorry, I did have one more note. I had to give an honorable mention to the VSS Ventores. The Spetsnaz really like using that gun nowadays. Dragunov is still in use, certainly, but they like the Ventores because it's small, it's tactical, and
is that
it's
the one
silent.
that can go full auto too?
It's full auto, integrally suppressed.
Yeah.
It's a very cool gun.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Again, if you couldn't get an AK-74 on Deadliest Warrior,
you're not getting
no.
VSS.
Right.
Yeah. So Maxim's aim is over an inch off, they say. Is that the gun's fault? I don't think so, but I mean, he's a sniper, so maybe he's just having a rough day. Maybe he sneezed before he
He also
fired it,
slides the sight on like when he lays down and prone. They show like he slides the sight onto the gun. It's not like he had to sight it in there.
I don't know if there was something going on there though. Like,
pretty sure the sniper test is faked.
They shoot from like 10 feet away also.
Yeah, they mark it as like they have little flags on the mannequins that say 70, 75, and 80, but I'm fairly certain this test is fake because they show bullet impacts like hitting the target, and those are obviously real. They did shoot the targets, but like you can edit stuff. We've seen with the show, you can edit stuff very in a manipulatively, right?
Yeah.
And when they show close-ups of some of these shots, like especially the one that's like in between the eyes that Matt Anderson supposedly hits with the M24, it's looks like somebody just poked that with their finger and like made an indentation. It doesn't actually look like a bullet hole. So I agree that their assessment that the M24 is more accurate than the Dragunov,
it's designed to be.
Obviously that depends on the operator, but the M24 is like designed to be a very accurate weapon. Dragunov's as accurate as it needs to be for its purpose. And at 80 yards, the accuracy makes no fucking difference. Like any rifle is going to give you good accuracy.
It depends on what you're sighted in.
Yeah. The person operating the gun is what matters at 80 yards.
Yeah. So moving on to the M24, stats are a range of 875 yards, which is significantly less than the Dragunov. Ammo 7.62, mag 5-round mag, 6 rounds per minute.
I never.
I guess this would be Lucas.
Less range.
Is the range really that much less?
No.
No.
Team Spetsnaz will admit no.
I did not even notice it had less range.
Chris Kyle, have you heard of him?
I think that's just one of the shows.
It's like a third or close to a third less range.
Wow.
It's the show's attempt to just offset again. The M24 is... There's 3 variants of it, and the range itself, just because we're touching on that, I have it in meters here. Did they use yards?
Yeah, but you can use meters.
Whatever. It's
Google it, you lazy Americans.
It has the range that the bullet's going to go is, a range. What is known as the effective range is where it's combat proven, essentially. So the effective range is 800 meters with the 7.62. But there is the A3 variant, which fires the .338 Lapua Magnum, which is the newer version that was also commonly used. It can fire up to 1,500
Objection,
meters.
Your Honor. This is the 7.62 variant in the test.
6. They call it a sniper rifle too, as you mentioned earlier. It is a sniper weapons, or where did I write it down? It's a sniper weapons system.
Yeah.
Because it consists of a rifle and a telescopic scope and other accessories, and it's fired in a 2-man team. It's actually been replaced by the M2010 enhanced sniper rifle. Just some notable facts: at 300 yards, it groups at about 1.9 inches with someone who's trained. It's known as extremely accurate. It's a sniper rifle. It's a very popular hunting rifle, too. It's called the M24. The civilian version is the Remington 700, which I fired. It's a very accurate.
That is the most popular.
Yeah,
I think
hunting.
until the AR-15 became like commonplace in the United States, that was the most popular hunting rifle.
In a lot of places, semi-auto rifles are banned for hunting. It's still one of the most popular because it's 5
like
round.
Pennsylvania.
It's 5 round internal magazine. You shove the rounds in, or it's box magazine capable. I mean, it's a bolt action rifle that's very accurate.
Yeah.
It's not much more than that.
So yeah, they give the edge to the M24 because of the people who fire it. Nothing to do with the
Quick
actual
question.
gun.
Yeah.
Do you guys think, why didn't they mention the semi-automatic Dragunov and the bolt action M24, like the Sega and the Mossberg?
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to touch on with the edge was they make such a big deal about the Sega being semi-auto. They don't even mention it with the Dragunov. So we have to establish what range this fight is at. That's what's important, because if this is a battle that starts at 875 yards away, I think the M24 does provide a significant advantage, because if you have a Green Beret sniper team there, they're going to be able to get some really significant kills, I think. But if this fight is a close quarters battle like we saw, snipers are useless. And if they're starting at like 80 yards, or I would say starting like 300 yards and inward, I would actually argue that the Dragunov has some significant, like, just logical advantages over something like an M24.
Put an ACOG scope on that baby and just go.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but
the M24, if we're in close range, if we're like 300 yards or in, right, which this fight is like inside a building, so I don't even know if that's what it is. If this is,
mention that because when we see the final reenactment, does anyone have a Dragunov?
no one has a Dragunov, and
Or
the
an
one
M24.
M24 we see is slung on a guy's back.
Yeah, okay.
And he has a Beretta out, and he gets owned immediately.
Oh, I'm sure that helped him a lot.
Right, yeah,
Because
so-
they're impractical under
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know
you
500 yards.
you wouldn't bring your sniper rifle into a building with you. So what I'm trying to say is, if this is a fight that's like 300 yards and in, Dragunov is semi-automatic, and it's got 10 rounds in the magazine versus 6. It's going to be plenty accurate enough within those ranges. I don't think there's going to be a major difference between, they were like, it's up to an inch off. It's like, it's still, he's aiming between the guy's eyes and it hits him like here.
Yeah.
That's still going to kill somebody. And, and obviously that's subjective on the shooter's part.
It's probably because they're just honestly too close to the target. To be...
And it's mag fed. You can pop it out and reload it really quickly. It's a DMR. It's meant for more like close engagements than an actual sniper rifle. So what's more accurate? M24. What's a better sniper rifle? M24. What's better for this episode of Deadliest Warrior? From what I've seen, from all the tests, from the reenactment, from everything, from what little information we're given, Dragunov's better.
By definition, a DMR has to be semi-automatic too, from what I've seen. And so it's like two separate weapon classes, essentially.
What do you think is, I'm curious, Mike and Lucas, like what's the equivalent American,
the M14.
what's an American DMR,
Like,
do you think?
They're probably
in
the M14.
Afghanistan,
Yeah, the
when
M14.
America started going in, they found that the M16 and the M4 didn't have enough range. So they went into armories where all the M14s from the Vietnam were still, and they just more or less took them out, chopped the stock off, and turned them into M14 ERBs. And the Special Forces would definitely have it. The Green Berets would have this weapon. And that would have been a more interesting lineup as the M14 versus the Dragunov, because they're both DMRs.
I think so too.
And they both were using Afghanistan for similar purposes of being able to get out and fight people at greater ranges.
That's a great point. They're both used in Afghanistan too. Yeah.
Sniper rifles can be semi-automatic. Like you look at your Beret 50 cal too, they can be semi-auto. When you look at the ranges that these are practically applied in real life, some of these shots that are taken with like the reason the whole 50 cal was started to be used as like a sniper round for the distance and velocity cover. Some of these shots are being taken like a couple miles away.
Yeah, let me tell you something. You can hit dead center mass of the face with the M4 and the AK-74 at 80 yards.
Yeah,
that's not. That's
the DMR
nothing.
and the sniper rifle are useless at that range.
Yeah. You don't need. It's overkill.
In real life, these shots with these DMR and the sniper rifle, even further, are being taken from like ridiculous ranges.
Yes.
So at this point at the show, take out the Etool, Ballistic Knife, Dragunov, M24. We're still good.
And the pistol.
This battle should honestly just be 50-50.
Yeah. So speaking of pistols, let's keep it moving to the Makarov. So the stats are range of 55 yards, which that's half a football field. 9mm ammo, 8-round mag, 30 rounds per minute. Besides the actual test, I thought that the quick draw that Sonny did was really cool. When he's like,
that specific. You can buy those, by the way.
The holster is real.
You can buy those holsters.
Are they actually practical? Because if you had one already loaded and you pulled down and cocked it, it would just eject your
They're
first
practical
round.
if you carry a Makarov, number one, and number two, if you ride on an empty chamber, because you can load one into the
but then
chamber.
you're losing
real quick.
around still.
No. You're riding on an empty chamber.
Yeah, but you could have one loaded and then put in a full magazine. So technically, I'm saying in like a combat sense, you're losing.
Also, people get pissed. I've read online, people get pissed at those holsters because sometimes they can discharge around into your foot.
Nice.
Because of where they are.
So Russian.
Do you remember that video? I just fucking shot myself.
I don't remember that video, but I believe you.
After the show, I'll pull it out.
Sonny could absorb that though, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Honestly,
do it again.
So the range that they give for a Makarov effective distance,
which is the same for the Beretta.
Yeah, that's quite a pistol marksman, but
yeah,
honestly, for the Spetsnaz, I'll give it to him.
It's the max. It's the max pistol range.
That's like maybe the max range that you're
really. I
gonna
thought
like hit a body.
I thought it was kind of short.
That's not gonna be like a headshot. It's not. When you
pistols
actually
are
fire,
really difficult.
Yeah, I think I covered this in the last episode with the pistol too. When you actually fire a pistol, especially under pressure, like we train at like 25 yards, and it's even difficult because, like, when you're sitting there and you have the pistol and you're focusing, the sights on the pistol are so big and they're very inaccurate. That is,
I had to
maybe
work,
a very
they're hard to
trained-
adjust.
I had to work hard for my ribbon.
That's what I qualified with the M9, which we'll get to shortly, and it's. You think it's easier than it really is.
Yeah.
To hit something with a pistol.
So, like we said, that's a pretty decent range for a pistol marksman, but as a highly trained Spetsnaz commando, I think that's well within the reasonable.
In this fictional scenario, we're assuming these guys are like max skill level in the video game, right? You put in the cheat code in San Andreas to get CJ really buff.
If you go to
55 yards would probably be like your effective.
If you go to that RT propaganda again, you see a lot of training with the Makarov, and more modern GSH-18, but that's not what they use. So it's not really the Makarov I have a problem with this. It's the night vision goggle test.
Well, we'll get to the test because I want to introduce the Beretta first.
That's opening a bag of worms.
This is going to be my grievance relievance.
I know, we thought this wasn't fucking long enough.
Just
talk about the night vision
wanted to
test.
insert another very Russian-sounding name. Makarov is named after the designer Nikolai Makarov.
What else would his first name be?
Vladimir Nikolai.
So the Beretta introduced range 55 yards, as previously stated. Ammo 9mm also. A little bit of a bigger mag at 15 rounds, and it shoots 40 rounds per minute. They specifically mention how heavy the gun is, but they don't list the weapon's weight at all, and they don't really for most of these, which is,
Do they do that in a negative sense? I don't remember.
I mean, not really. He's like, well, it's heavier than I thought. And they commented on a few times to where I was curious, like, how much would this
They
thing
comment that the M9 is a higher profile and a heavier gun than a Makarov.
It's combat design. There was like
it's a double-edged sword. It's an advantage and a disadvantage.
Yeah, whenever you actually fire a pistol, I'll get to the reputation in a minute. When you actually fire a pistol, sometimes a heavier pistol to an extent helps you maintain a zero essentially, and it's a lot more stable, which makes it more accurate.
Heavier, longer guns are better for like shooting longer distance, typically, and then smaller guns are better for you can conceal them and manipulate them quicker.
Yeah,
right. So it's a double-edged sword. It's not really. It's
But
depending on what you're looking
about that
for.
at all in the show. Like that's an interesting difference, but it's not
because that's
mentioned.
something objective and analytical. And we got it's last day of production and it's nighttime,
we're
so we have to make up a test for these.
We're pushing 2 hours. They got 45 minutes.
Right, yeah.
That would be too scientific, damn it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Everyone has a lot to say about this test. Someone just tell me what's wrong.
Let me
with
cover the M9 real quick, just little stuff. It is the military version of the Beretta 92FS. It is known for its accuracy, but there is some controversy about the durability and the reliability in the military. I have personal experience with that. It was one of the lowest rated weapons out of everything that's used. Only 46%, 46% were not confident.
1911, baby. The Colt 1911. Bring it back. Nothing wrong with it.
46% were not confident in the M9's reliability in a combat survey, which is significantly high.
Where the fuck are you finding these surveys?
So
just off like Task and Force and like various.
Lucas, did you see the same thing I saw?
My God.
Most special operators in the American military, that's all special operations teams, prefer the 1911 over the. They like. There's even like a modernized 1911 called like the TAC Ops, or as I like to call it, the Tacos. Yeah.
I mean, the 1911 is perfection.
Yes, I agree.
Many people
Mike,
complained
can you rebrand that pistol as the Dick Couch?
1911 would have gotten the edge over the Makarov.
Yeah, a lot of people complained.
Freaking awesome.
When the M9 was introduced, a lot of people complained because it was 9mm and not 45. In my personal experience, I qualified with the M9. The ones that the military get are beat to shit.
Yeah.
They suck. After the military, I fired a Beretta M9A3, their new variant that they tried to get renewed contract, which got replaced by, is it the SIG P320?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those
the new
SIGs.
ones, it is so smooth. It is so perfect weight. I really am a big fan of the A3.
Even with just the A3, I felt so spoiled.
So
that was out of the Navy.
I'm hearing at this table, like, Lucas hated his M9 in the service. Dan, you were complaining about yours. I remember specifically for my whole life, like, my dad taking me to the range and having me shoot like a 1911 and him telling me how, yeah, I bought this when I was in the service because the M9 is a piece of garbage. Like, it sucks. And I shot that A3 with you. And that's a nice, it's a really nice handgun. But you mentioned, like, these are not the ones we get in the service. We get up, like, these beat up. Do you have any experience with that, Mike? Or?
So the Army, unless you go into infantry, which I am not, you don't train with you only train with your M16 or M4. Okay. But from my research, like I said, special operations groups go with the 1911 or some other not M9 pistol. Or 6 hours.
Like a Sig Sauer.
A lot of them preferred the 1911 for the higher stopping power. And one quick mention about pistols. They're, again, a last resort kind of a thing. If you're using your pistol, you're probably not in good straits because...
The pistol, to me, should be the close range. Like, it is the close range weapon in this. Don't have the ballistic knife or anything like that.
Yeah,
like
it should end at the pistol.
The martial arts is cool, but like the pistols should be the close range weapons.
Yeah.
The winner to me, and why this is my grievance relievance, the Beretta has a 15-round magazine. You have almost double the shots, and besides that, it's you're going to be firing these at like very close range.
Yeah, for reference, the Makarov's got an 8-round magazine.
Yeah, you have almost double the magazine, and the Beretta has a slightly longer barrel, and that little bit of extra weight kind of helps you keep it steady, which is why I think I'm just going to get to the point. I think the Beretta is better.
So I'll say this. I've never fired a Makarov. The type of gun it is, I mean, it is pretty cool. It's cool looking. The Makarov, in my research, has a really good reputation. It's rugged and reliable, and it's still in service today.
Albeit modernized.
Keep in mind, all of these Russian weapons are like rugged and reliable, and that's because they have to survive a Russian winter. Okay, Napoleon's army didn't make it through a Russian winter, but the Makarov does. All right, and as far as like the edge, it depends. I mean, if you want to make it just the magazine size, that is something logical to give the Beretta the edge on. It really depends on who's operating the gun. These guys are both really good operators. They make it something as arbitrary as the night vision.
But who's better with night vision? Yeah.
and it's not even that, because I'm going to drop this bombshell on all of you. I'm pretty sure that test is fake. No one is shooting a gun in that test. Those bullet holes, they literally zoom in on some of those bullet holes, and again, it's like the sniper test where it looks like someone just took a chip out of like the foam target, and like they zoom in on one. When Sonny runs through, Sonny shoots first, just like Han Solo. They show on his first target, they show one shot, then Sonny points out a shot that's in the stomach, like right here. He points it out, and they zoom in on it, and this shot looks like you can see the foam underneath, like the white covering.
It's like a quarter inch.
There is no hole. It looks like someone just did this with their fingernail and then wiped a little blood above it. Like they smeared a little bit of blood above it. You tell me, is that a bullet hole? It doesn't look like a bullet hole to me. I think the test was fake.
Not with regular foam.
I think the test was fake, and I will get to... I don't necessarily have a problem with them giving the Makarov the edge. I do have a severe problem with what happens in the results of this show, the statistical results, but we will get to that when we get to it.
Whenever they do any shooting in this episode, what is kind of really dumb, they portray this like they're these elite representatives of the military, but they do not follow like basic protocol of how you would shoot a target, where they do 2 in the chest, 1 in the head is like military protocol. But these targets are just peppered with rounds wherever. And it's weird. If these guys were like representing the military, you think they would like follow what the protocol is.
So the test is fake, right? But the way they set it up, like Sonny hits all 3 targets, and Sergeant George Gomez only hits like 2 targets, but he has a faster time. So obviously Sonny's taking more time to pick his shots. Like even in the test is fake, so I guess that doesn't really matter. But it kind of, I don't know, it the whole thing irks me. I would bet money that it's just because production ran to the last night. And
you don't fire pistols with night vision goggles either. The whole reason of night vision tests in the military, you're given it's like a little laser thing that attaches usually to your M4, M16, and when you put on the night vision goggles, it creates a visible laser, and that's how you aim your weapon during those.
No, Call of Duty Modern Warfare actually got it like dead on. That is how it is in real life. A laser actually will come out of the weapon, and I had a drill sergeant who was like a 10, 12 year, over a decade being a combat engineer, doing a lot of room clearing. And yeah, that is exactly how the night vision goggles work with the laser coming out.
Yeah, you use an infrared laser. You don't aim down your sights. You use a laser essentially as your guide for aiming, and it's on your rifle. You do not fire a pistol with night vision goggles.
Edge, yes. 1911.
Yeah, can we change it to that?
All right.
Sorry, I was out to lunch.
It's all good.
I was on Instagram. Okay.
Our host Craig he's like our resident weeb. If you didn't notice, we give him all the Japanese. Give him all the Japanese warriors.
He also
and he's
hates
not
guns.
interested
He's
in
just
the gun
there,
stuff.
just like you can see his face, like kill me.
All right, listen. I don't hate guns. Okay.
Guns.
You're just not interested.
It's just not for me.
Cool.
I'm sure this discussion is for somebody.
This one has a wire stock.
Yeah. So, I love guns. In conclusion,
I'm buying you a shirt for the next podcast. It's just I love guns.
Yeah.
Are you going to the results, Craig?
Well,
can I say just a couple things about the reenactment? It's literally 2 things.
Yeah, I actually had something about the reenactment too.
Right,
So
you go ahead.
Just that the reenactment takes place in like Chernobyl, and because that's what all of Russia looks like. All of the footage of the exterior of the building is like super overexposed, and I'm not like a director, as I'm sure you could see. I mean, but like you can't even really see what's happening in a lot of them because like it's just like blaring, and a lot of this footage in this like season is like that also. So I don't know what's going on, and also I actually liked how Mafia Yakuza ended, like, or not ended, but like the reenactment. I thought it was fun. Yeah. You can kind of tell the last 2 guys were the last 2 guys.
Yeah.
This one, it just kind of ends, and you're like, oh, that was it.
Yeah.
So this might have been why they created the kill counter.
Yeah. Definitely at the start of the reenactment, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Spetsnaz guys are dropping left and right.
Yeah. People are just dropping like Green Berets kill 4 Spetsnaz, and then 1 Spetsnaz guy kills like. So 1 Green Beret dies in the process, and then 1 Spetsnaz guy kills the remaining 4 Green Berets. The only 2 things I wanted to say were, so someone translated the sign that's shown at the very beginning of the reenactment. It's actually a city in Chechnya. So it's like the Green Berets and Spetsnaz are fighting in Chechnya.
So the Green Berets train the Chechens?
Yeah, I guess the Chechens, Dan. Come on.
Sorry.
And it's entirely close quarters, and they don't even feature sniper rifles. And then I also just wanted to note the Spetsnaz give us the iconic line at the end of the fight. Ja, Spetsnaz!
Ja, Spetsnaz!
Which actually translates to I am Spetsnaz. But I like to just think he's speaking English and saying, "Ja, Spetsnaz!"
Yeah.
And then the stuff he whispers in Russian to the American soldier on the ground, he whispers to the dead Green Beret and says, "No one will ever defeat us." He's saying it in Russian, but that's the translation. So those were my 2 fun facts about the reenactment. I guess the only other gripe, I'm going to get it out now, about the episode is this whole episode is marketed as a Cold War matchup. They consistently call the Spetsnaz the Soviet Spetsnaz. They say these guys are Cold War rivals. It makes sense. That's when America and Russia were,
that narrative.
And they are hanging a freaking iron, hammer and sickle flag on the Spetsnaz desk. Yet multiple weapons featured in this episode were invented post 91, including the gun that ends up making the pivotal
also
difference,
their
Sega
digital
12.
camo. My big thing I wanted to talk about is the
Green Berets are dressed in like
camo's out
modern
of date
camo,
nowadays. I don't wear that. You might be able to see.
I actually I just wanted to say on that Cold War note, they don't give us a year. I think that's because they want to use certain weapons and it wouldn't fit. I think a Cold War matchup between like a Vietnam era Green Beret and an Afghan War era Spetsnaz would be pretty dope. So
yeah,
I would have liked to see that, but they kind of do this weird like. I know COD 4 had just come out around the time of this episode airing, so they probably wanted to jump on that train. They're like, when did the M4 come out? 2003? Shit.
It really was like a wave of like modern gun affinity, like following Modern Warfare and stuff.
I think that affected this episode like heavily, like what was on here.
Deadliest Warrior always kind of has a way of like riding the culture.
Because you can notice in the intro video to the Deadliest Warrior, my brain is poisoned by all this stuff, so I have to get it out. The intro video to the Deadliest Warrior season 1, like their intro where they're like, no rules, no safety, no mercy, right? A Green Beret is featured in that intro video, and he is wearing camo face paint and is in like a ghillie suit holding an M16A1 Vietnam era style gun. So I'm just saying, I think this was originally supposed to be a Cold War matchup between Vietnam Green Berets and Afghan Spetsnaz, and instead got shifted at some point during production to like a more modern, like post 91 matchup.
Yeah. Dan, you wanted to add something?
Honestly, the biggest. Can I do my grievance relievance?
Well, I want to get into the stats first. Lucas, do you have something you want to say?
We all have
stats?
a grievance relievance.
Yeah. Okay. I thought we were already at conclusion time.
Okay, we might say that for the end.
Yeah.
So Spetsnaz wins, as you may already know. Kills.
Spetsnaz.
The kills are very tight comparatively. I mean, I guess we have 6 weapons, but still very tight. 104 kills for the Sega, 24 for the RGD5, 7 kills for the Ballistic Knife, 288 for the AK-74, 84 kills for the Dragunov, and 12 kills for the Makarov, total of 519. And the Green Beret, the Mberg, as they say, is 42 kills. The M67 is 36. Etool is 3. The M4A1 gets 311, so actually more than the AK-74. The M24 gets 85 kills. The Beretta gets 4, totaling 481 kills. My math was right. I know they showed it at the end, but I skipped over it and didn't want to rewind, so I just did the math in my head.
I just want to say, fun piece of trivia: the third closest matchup in all of season 1 and 2. So I think the only closer matchups are the Navy SEALs and Israeli Commandos and the IRA Taliban. So second closest matchup in season 1 and third closest matchup in season 1 and 2. I don't count season 3 because they switched to like a new scoring system. So that's I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So a couple more notes about the end before I let you guys get into it. So I think this is concrete proof that the sim can't be fake, as we mentioned, because this would be the dumbest decision ever, especially something this close. Max says that it came to a difference of 7 kills outside of a standard deviation, almost too close to call, but 7 men made the difference. I don't know what the fuck that means.
So the standard, that would make like the standard deviation 31. It's kind of a random number, but
yeah, I don't know.
31 either way, I guess.
Yeah,
or is that 31 total?
I think he just
like 15 and a half.
He just said some techno gobble.
Right.
Like,
they put a camera in front of him.
Standard deviation.
Yeah, I guess. Is that...
Special
if you're Max Geiger, tell us in the comments what you meant by it.
It did sound like he meant something by it, but I thought I was going to explain
meant. You know what it sounded like to me was they ran the sim and they were like, oh shit. And he was like, so it was really close, almost too close to call, you might say.
Yeah. Well, at what point when you're dealing with hard numbers is too close to call? What number is bigger than the other one? That's what I didn't get.
Can I remark? I took a screenshot of this. At 38 minutes and 31 seconds into the episode. This was on the DVD, so I hope it translates to the Amazon stream. 38 minutes, 31 seconds into the episode. They freeze frame. You can pause. They show Max on his computer on his Excel spreadsheet, and he has a few columns pulled up, and one of them is listed like Green Beret and has 6 different figures listed below it, like those are the weapon kills, and has a total at the bottom. The total is different from the final total we've seen. It's actually a lot smaller. And then he has like the percentage of kills that those got on that team. It looks like if you were recording Deadliest Warrior stats into your Excel sheet, like, okay, let me reference this later, let me put in how these got, that's what it looks like. Very weird. I don't know what it means.
They would all go to the short range Green Beret, right? From the Excel spreadsheet. That's what it looked like.
No, it's like most of the kills come from the M4 still, but like it's just
it's weird.
As, like,
it's very weird. You pause it at home. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, you pause it at home and see for yourself.
It's a good insight.
Is the sim fake?
Anytime you see the Excel sheet on screen, you should pause it because you won't really find anything, but it's interesting.
This one was probably the most comprehensive. Like, we could actually tell generally what the data was from.
Yeah,
like
and
what
you
it
could
meant.
read it. Yeah.
Usually it's just fucking gibberish.
Yeah.
And real quick before we get into grievance relievance, Matt Anderson can't help himself, and he says that the fact that we had 2 techno geeks tell us what we didn't win, I'm not too upset about that. And so I was like, wait a minute, 2? You're calling Jeff DeMolin, karate black belt, and former paramedic a geek?
You bet he's gonna put it on his resume now.
Yeah.
Jeff DeMolin could steal your wife, buddy.
Right. Yeah. And so the other thing too is like this guy, like he's one of those people that has no self-awareness, and it's like, buddy, you're a geek. Like you're a military geek.
Yeah,
everything you say is
true.
so geeky. Like I'm a tough guy. Okay, I'm not a geek. Yes, you are.
It's all perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So that was annoying. But, okay, so I think what I'll do to give us some structure, we're going to go around the room. You get 1 minute, and then no one can interrupt, and you give your grievance relievance. So, Dan, you're going to go starting, let me get to my timer. Not 10 minutes, although I know you could go that long.
I've prepared for this my whole life.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right, go.
Okay, so first I want to say that. All right. My grievance relievance, honestly, is just the RGD5 test where they pull out the F1, which is clearly the wrong grenade. It's such a small issue, but it kind of just tells me that no one gives a fuck what's going on in this show. Like, they could have such a subtle issue like that, but no one's going to be actually testing whether they have the right grenade, the right model of gun, the right accurate test. It's just, it reinforced to me that this was all just arbitrary. And seeing that, just it kind of felt lazy. So it really hurt me to see something like that come up in the show. And I know I'm coming up short. That was on purpose. Grievance relievance ended.
Oh, you yield your time.
Yes.
Impressive.
Use it well, Matt.
Yeah. So, Matt, your turn.
Okay. So my grievance relievance, I got 2 big things. Number 1, the Beretta gets 4 kills. Makarov gets 12. To put that in perspective, Ballistic Knife gets 7 kills. So the Ballistic Knife gets more kills than the Beretta pistol. Etool gets 3. The Beretta gets 1 more kill than the Etool. That's crap. The sim, you need to fix that shit. Number 2, for all the arguing we've ever done about Etools, Ballistic Knives, and pistols and night vision goggles, this test came down to one big thing, and it was the shotguns. If you do the math, the assault rifles have a kill differential of 23. The shotguns have a kill differential of 62 in a matchup that had a 38 kill differential. Give the Green Berets the M4 Benelli. I bet that distance closes. I bet the matchup tilts a different way. It shouldn't be decided on something as arbitrary as someone having a semi-auto and someone having a pump.
For our grievance relievances, whoever's editing this, can you please put a timer up on the screen?
If I can figure out how to do that, I will.
Can I just say one more thing? One more?
You got 4 seconds.
It's a fun fact, okay?
Okay, 4 seconds.
All right,
Ready?
Go. Episode 1 of Season 2, the SWAT uses the M4 Benelli. The Benelli gets...
Cut him off, Brendan. Cut him off.
No.
The Benelli gets 80 kills in the sim. Difference between 80 and 42, which is the Mossberg kill count, is 38. That is the exact difference between the Green Beret and the Spetsnaz.
Conspiracy.
Okay. Lucas, you want to go?
Sure.
All right, ready? Go.
My whole life.
The Beretta should have won. The Green Beret should have won. RTIC, I love your coolers. Natter Days, you make a good drink. And Dick Couch, you write a good book. I'm done.
All right. Impressive. Mike, ready? Go.
Both warriors would be wearing body armor. Why didn't they mention body armor? The Soviet Union invades Afghanistan and collapses shortly after. The Green Berets enter Afghanistan and the Taliban completely collapses within a year.
Okay. Well, that was impressive. I honestly think if we didn't do that, we probably would still be talking. So I think it was necessary.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So, and then one final kind of roundtable thing, and you guys have obviously gotten a lot off your chests.
Yeah.
Although for this last question, before I get into my thesis, I want you to show restraint and mercy to the show. I want you to answer just yes or no, and whatever this question means to you. Is this the best episode of Deadliest Warrior ever? Yes or no? Dan?
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, Mike, you had your...
No.
That's an even split.
Well, since it's my game, I'll explain. I think it is. Because you just can't stop talking about it. It's so controversial. You know that they didn't just make the Americans win just because there's no doubt in your mind. And it's everything that Deadliest Warrior is. It's bullshit. It's entertaining. You got good experts. So I think this is the best episode. This is the peak of the show.
Can I change mine to yes?
Yes, you can, young man.
It's definitely my favorite. The Green Berets were my favorite warriors before I even heard about Deadliest Warrior, and they still are. Shout out to our WWE Royal Rumble video. And then throughout the years, I did not know who the Spetsnaz was. This show led me to look into so much stuff, and Spetsnaz, I gotta say, are probably my second favorite warriors featured on the entirety of the show. So
yes, Spetsnaz.
Yes, the show is goofy, and I think most of these tests are fake. But just to argue and debate, I think these are my two favorite warriors, so that's what makes it my favorite episode.
Yeah. So finally, I want to give you the thesis, at least my thesis of this episode.
Yeah. Can I stall you for one more minute just to bug you? You, the viewer, who have watched all of our videos so far, you got to wait one more minute for the thesis because I'm going to give my shout outs here. On episode 1, we got Liam H. Thank you. We got AJS, The Real Shino, and Fiction Rumble. Thank you for watching. We got episode 2. We got Fiction Rumble again. We got Tegan M. We got Caesar, who is on almost all of our videos.
Yes, Caesar, you're on every video, man. Shout out.
We got Matt J. Let's see if I can get number 3 here. Oh, that is 4.
We will be plugging our new official Gmail. You guys can send in emails to the pod, and we'll check them out.
What is it?
It's xenugames1@gmail.com.
Xenu Games was taken.
Yes,
I have the Xenu Games 0.
I was going to say
Xenu Games 0, you bastard. xenugames1@gmail.com. We also have a Twitter. It's @xenugames. So,
yeah. All right. Episode 3, we got...
Hit us up.
MK,
we have official stuff now.
We got MK Demigodzilla. We got Caesar again. The Real Shino again. We got some repeats. We got Caesar again on episode 4. We got the real Shino. We got Michael Field, who is a Xenu with Xenu,
who may or may not.
That's our plant.
May or may not be our friend and appearing in the next episode.
And then on the latest episode, we got Caesar again, and he commented on the Royal Rumble like 30 minutes after it was up.
Nice.
Thank you, everyone who has watched. And this was it. This was the big episode, and we are finally gonna hear Craig's thesis.
Thank you. So, if you'll let me have the floor. So I want to take.
I got one. I'm just kidding.
Brandon, I want you to bring all of their mic stuff. So, I want to bring you back to the quote I talked about earlier, where Maxime says that guns just don't do the job; people do the job. At the end of this episode, Dorian says that plain and simple, the Spetsnaz had more skill, and that Jeff says it didn't matter what weapon you put in their hand, they were able to make the test results tip in their favor. But that is not what this show tests. What we've talked about extensively is pretty much every weapon on this show at the right distance the difference is negligible. And you're really testing the warrior rather than the weapon. What would have been more interesting, I understand it would have broken the fabric of the show or the format, is to, at these different turns, test the people and not the weapons. For example, the night vision pistol test is a great test of the person, yet they evaluate the pistol with what they see. Same with the sniper test. Instead of having the stupid-ass Etool or Beretta, have some type of demonstration or at least discussion about how Sistema would compare to whatever sort of, I don't know if it's Krav Maga, whatever sort of hand-to-hand the Green Berets would use. I understand you can have a UFC fight in the middle of the episode, but that would have been way more interesting to have a brief sparring or some sort of discussion. Here's what these two people use, not these dumbass weapons. So when Maxime says that it's about the warriors, not the weapon, I don't necessarily know that the Spetsnaz training is better and they're better trained and everything, but that's really what this episode should be about, is Green Beret versus Spetsnaz, not M4A1 versus AK-74. So I really resonated with that quote from Maxime. I think it's perfect for what's wrong with this and what this episode could have been. I understand why they didn't want to do it, but when we reboot Deadliest Warrior, I can promise you when we redo this episode, that's what's going to happen. So that was my grievance relievance, especially when these are the literal warriors they're testing. It doesn't make sense, obviously, you have to do these reenactments with Shaka Zulu and William Wallace or Shaolin Monk versus Maori Warrior, because these really aren't the actual warriors you're testing. You have to do a guesstimation. These are the warriors. So it makes even more sense to test them specifically in their training, because you don't really get this with anyone else hardly. So that's my thesis, and I think that's what this episode's all about.
I like a good wrap up.
I like that. I like that, Craig.
I just want to close with saying it was an absolute pleasure being on here for Green Beret vs. Spetsnaz. I am super excited to see you guys again for Taliban versus IRA.
Oh yeah,
and I'll just close.
It's gonna be a hot one.
Yeah, this is I would consider this our mid-season finale. Brendan, how long are we going?
2 hours 42 minutes.
Nice.
We're under 3.
Under 3.
That was the goal.
We predicted over 3. So
yeah,
I want to give one more statement if I could. I regret that I didn't get a chance to talk about some of the more abusive elements of Spetsnaz training. You can look into it yourselves, though. Getting locked in a room with an attack dog. Getting covered in blood and organs.
Really brutal history, even past the training.
They strap a bulletproof vest on you. They shoot you, so you know what it feels like. Anyways, my closing statement I wanted to say, I think Craig hit the nail on the head with the theses of the episode that the Spetsnaz had better training. I think there is an argument to be made that perhaps the Spetsnaz have more direct action training than the Green Berets. But what I ultimately want to say about this episode is, guys, if you're upset that the Green Berets lost, I think these operators are all very capable. I think the weapons are all very capable of doing some serious damage. This isn't like the Ancient Warriors where like armor matters or what type of metal you're using. These guys have modern firearms. They have the most advanced weapon training. All of the stuff, who would win between a Green Beret and a Spetsnaz depends completely on context. And, who's getting the drop on who has the better intelligence, who has air support available to them. A million different questions, right, that you could never answer. It's all very specific. Green Berets and Spetsnaz probably have met in the field, right? And we just don't know about it. So in a show devoid of context, I think all this episode really showed to me was that in a modern matchup between two military units, like, it's pretty much even.
Who knows?
Yeah, right? I think it could go either way. Could the Spetsnaz beat the Green Berets? Yeah, but I think just as easily you could argue the other way around. And in this show's format, they say weapons don't matter. Well, let's switch the Sega and the Mossberg. Who wins in the sim, right? That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So with that, I think we did it.
Yeah.
I think it's finally over a decade-old wound has been healed.
Yes, Spetsnaz.
So, I mean,
Spetsnaz.
Yeah.
We have 3 clips of a fully decked out army soldier going, "Yeah, Spetsnaz."
Yeah. So anyway, I want to thank you for making it this far. If you did, I want you to type the word yes, Spetsnaz.
Yeah, yes, type yes, Spetsnaz
in the comments if you made it this far.
Yes, on a serious note, engage us in the comments. We've seen people regularly watching the show. We're getting some views in. This is why we're constantly putting in effort to upgrade the show, make it better, do the best we can to give you the best show possible. Engage us in the comments. Tell us what we can do. Tell us what you want to see. Any ideas? We got some new podcasts. We got the Pretty Good podcast also. We got this. We got some gameplay
This is
videos.
a labor of love. We just love this show, so we just wanted to do a show
and
on it.
I honestly, after 2 hours and 45 minutes of going at this, I would be shocked if we just left it here.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess if that's it, then I want to thank you guys for making it this far and sticking with us, and we'll see you next episode for Shaolin Monk versus Maori Warrior.